Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. 11 p.m., Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania are in that particular line. In UK, it is already 8 minutes past 8 o'clock. That will be 8 minutes past 9 o'clock in the rest of Europe. That's the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and so on. Well, the program here tonight is Come, Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and we are live on 75 W Radio. We are also live on Uma Connect via YouTube, where we are streaming live at this particular moment in time, as well as on Zoom, where this conversation is going to be run. You can also get us on Facebook, or actually just go to 75wradio.com. And there you can actually see previous programs and be able to watch several of our programs. Tonight, we are talking divorce, and this is part 2. Last week, we were looking at divorce. We decided to look at divorce in these different categories because divorce in itself is a big topic. To be able to understand the whys, that's where we started last week. Why divorce? Should there be grounds that would allow somebody to divorce? If you go to church, for example, when you're being joined into a holy matrimony, the word is till death both us part. What happens then when, for example, there's emotional abuse? What happens if there are circumstances that become so difficult for a person to be able to contend with in a situation like that? What happens then is, well, definitely exceptionally, they will have to be able, the two parties now, to go their separate ways. Divorce, of course, is a painful experience. It leaves a bitter taste in your mouth, but just like medicine, you'll find that actually sometimes you have to get that bitter taste to heal. Sometimes people live in very abusive relationships. Sometimes relationships have been exhausted to the point that now there's probably nothing more to milk from that. In Kinyarwanda, there is a saying, they say, "Ningogu kama ikimasa." You get to a point where you're going to start milking a bull, and you know, of course, what that means. You wouldn't get anything out of that. So when a relationship gets to that point where there are irreconcilable differences, it is probably moment to call it quits. But given the importance of family, because when you join into holy matrimony, husband and wife, it is two people that have fallen in love, depending on the different circumstances where you met. But once you get into holy matrimony, what that means now is you bring two families together. Very many people become entangled in this particular relationship. In a situation where children come into the picture, now they add value, but they also add weight to the relationship. In case of a breakup, in case of a divorce, which is never a good time, you find that sometimes we tend to forget the children. That is what we'll be delving in tonight and looking at, the different religious aspects to try to navigate through that and see what exactly happens. How does it happen? If it happens, how would one handle themselves in a manner that is decent enough not to take them away from, where they're supposed to be? Just probably to get us, around this, let us just get our introductory clip tonight, looking at the different divorce lawyers, talking about the aspect of divorce, and then we'll get into our conversation. Isma in the studio, please, if our clip is ready, if you can have that clip just to get us ready while we are allowing more people to come in. Let's hear from the divorce lawyers talking about divorce.
Marriage is like the lottery. You're probably not going to win. But if you win, what you win is so great that it's worth trying. It's worth buying a ticket, taking the ride. 53% of marriages end in divorce in New York State. So if I said to you, there's a 53% chance that when you walk out the front door today, you're going to get hit in the head with a bowling ball, you would either stay inside or at a minimum, you would wear a helmet. You buy a house, they make you fill out 50 forms explaining that you understand the lead paint disclosures, you understand the loan, you understand everything. You get married, you can get a pamphlet. You didn't get a piece of paper that says, oh, by the way, you just did the most legally significant thing other than dying you'll ever do. The fact that you're entering into this significant legal contract when most people have zero idea what's actually involved in that contract and spend a lot more time figuring out what kind of cake we should have at the event is a really strange thing to me. Take marriage seriously.
If you want to be with a person who is social and very outgoing, then don't marry someone who is a homebody.
This is who I want. This is what I expect. If this doesn't work for you, then you may not be the right guy for me. it's critical that those expectations are communicated early.
You're not going to change all that much just because you're getting married. And the person that you're marrying is most probably not going to change all that much either.
I always tell clients, you divorced the person you were married to. And because clients come in and they'll say, in this shocked way, say like, I can't believe he's being so vindictive. And I'll say, well, what was he like during the marriage? And they say, well, he was vindictive. I can't believe he's nickel and diming me on all the finances. And I say, well, what was he like with money during the marriage? And say, well, he was the kind of person that would nickel and dime everybody. Okay, well, why would you think he'd be different during the divorce?
I think one of the most important conversations you need to have with your partner before getting married is about your finances. Doing a prenup forces the couple to have a conversation. With a prenuptial agreement, there is mandatory financial disclosure. Most people are out there making their own money, and by the time they get married, they have their own bank accounts and, student loans or credit card debts. And those are all sort of important things to know about the person that you're going to marry.
I think what a lot of us are looking for in someone to date is very different than what we're looking for in someone to marry. I've had so many clients who, for example, their boyfriend or girlfriend has a job that is so cool to have a boyfriend or girlfriend doing, a musician, a chef. There's something very exciting about dating someone in that position. So think about what it's going to be like to be married to someone in that position, a chef who works really long hours late into the night. A person who travels for business that's on the road, 45 weeks of a year. What makes for a good boyfriend or girlfriend and what makes for a good spouse or partner, especially if you want to have kids, is a tremendously different thing much of the time. When you represent people in divorce, you see good people at their worst. So I've seen, stay-at-home moms who, in the middle of a courtroom, throw something at their spouse.
The biggest mistake that people make when they're getting divorced is to make this into the winner and loser situation. They get so caught up into standing their ground that they lose focus on what really matters and the collateral damage that's happening around them. The key here is to keep your eye on the prize. It's my job to take your hand and walk you through this path, which is very scary, but the goal is to get to the other side, not to get stuck in the middle. I don't think that you have as much drama, unpredictable day-to-day experiences that you have in divorce and family law.
Being a divorce lawyer has helped me figure out in my own marriage what I'm fighting for and what I really don't want to lose.
I've been a divorce lawyer for 17 years. I still get teary-eyed at weddings. If I was to say to people, what they should try to hold on to is that sense of being this other person's cheerleader and being connected.
Hey there, are you a broker who would like to get a brand new lead flow that actually
can... Thank you very much. I think you've just seen divorce lawyers talking about giving the different perspectives. I'm sure, Counsel Francis, you are seeing a lot of what you have to deal with day in, day out. But before I open the conversation now to the big guests tonight, our special guests tonight, let's have another clip. And I'm sorry, I'm just playing them back to back simply because I want us just to build up a mental picture, prepare ourselves and see. Sometimes, in the Quran, for example, God says, عسى أن تكرهوا شيء وهو خير لكم وعسى أن تحبوا شيء وهو شر لكم. Sometimes you might want something so badly, and yet it is not what is good for you. Sometimes you might hate something so much, and yet therein lies what is good for you. So sometimes you might think that you're breaking away from someone, you're divorcing someone, and you're thinking you're buying your peace, you're getting a consolation, but probably you're actually, what you don't know is you've given the other person that you are divorcing the best gift that they can have in the current circumstances. I want us just to watch this clip very quickly, and then we'll open up the conversation. In the meantime, please call your friends, let them come and join us, and then we'll open up our conversation tonight, looking at the difficult subject that is divorce. Isma, if that second clip, please, is busy, let's just have a watch of that to prepare us. In the meantime, remember our chat room is always busy. In case you have something that is burning, you just write it in there and you'll get responses. The council is always ready at hand. I'm sure Pastor Noel and Sheikh Buka will also be checking in the chat room to be able to pick up the pieces. And then if there are any issues that need addressing, that probably might have escaped my eye, then they can actually bring it on. Isma, if it's ready, please, let's roll with that. Please.
Next verse presents. Husband demands divorce in a letter, and his wife's reply is brilliant. When couples have problems, there are always two sides to the story. When a husband tells his friends about the problems with his wife, he often makes her sound like a terrible shrew. The problem is that his story may not always be the whole story. If people understand both sides, chances are they wouldn't feel the same. This is the story of the day a husband demanded a divorce in a letter to his wife, but her brilliant reply made him regret every word. One day, a husband wrote his wife a note asking for a divorce. When you first read the letter, it makes you feel bad for the guy. He makes it sound as though his life with his wife has been terrible. This is a perfect example of there being two sides to every story. The man's letter read, "I'm writing you this letter to tell you that I'm leaving you forever. I've been a good man to you for 7 years and I have nothing to show for it. These last 2 weeks have been hell. Your boss called me to tell me that you quit your job, and to be honest, that was the last straw. Last week you came home and didn't even notice that I had a new haircut. You didn't realize that I cooked your favorite meal, and you didn't realize that I was wearing a brand new pair of silk boxers. Instead, you went straight to bed after watching your soaps. You don't tell me you love me anymore, and you don't want to have sex or do anything that bonds us as husband and wife. Either you are cheating on me or you don't love me anymore. I'm done. I'm gone. Signed, your ex-husband. P.S. Don't try to find me. Your sister and I are moving away to West Virginia together. Have a great life." The letter made the man's wife sound like a horrible, selfish shrew, didn't it? It's not until you read her letter back to him, though, that you see the other side of the story. Suddenly, she doesn't look all that bad. Here's her letter. "Dear ex-husband, nothing has made my day more than receiving your letter. It's true, you and I have been married for 7 years. However, a good man is a far cry from what you've been. I watch soaps to drown out your constant whining and complaining. Sadly, it doesn't work. I did notice your haircut last week. I think that you looked like a girl. My mother raised me to not say anything if you can't say something nice, so I didn't comment. When you cooked my favorite meal, you confused me with my sister. I stopped eating pork 7 years ago, right after we got married. About the new silk boxers, I turned away because the $49.99 price tag was still on them, and my sister had just borrowed $50 from me that morning. Quite the coincidence, don't you think? Even after all this, I loved you and hoped that we could work things out. I won the lottery. I had $10 million. I quit my job and bought us tickets to Jamaica. When I got home, you were gone. I guess everything happens for a reason. I talked to a lawyer. Your letter leaving me ensures that you won't get a dime of my winnings. Take care. Signed, your ex-wife, rich and free." In the end, the wife was not the horrible, neglectful shrew that her husband made her out to be in his letter. He was cheating on her with her own sister. Had he been a better man and a faithful man, he could be enjoying his days on the white sandy beaches of Jamaica. Instead, he's living in West Virginia with a lesser version of his wife, wondering what his life could have been if he just could have been a good guy. His letter almost made you pity him. After reading her letter, you can see that there truly are two sides to the story. The man in the story deserves all the misery that comes into his life from here on out. She has the money, she has the happiness, and she has the freedom to move on and find a real man. Subscribe for more.
Well. Thank you very much, Ismail, in the technical department there. Well, you have just seen, this is just an illustration of what could actually be happening in an actual relationship. This is actually a true story, apparently, that happened in the United States of America. But I think it reveals a lot of what goes on when it comes to relationships. So without much ado, I think it's time that we just open our conversation tonight. We're just getting joined by Sheikh Ashraf Mutagubia, very, very knowledgeable student of knowledge in Islam. We have Pastor Noel Iradukunda, who is the chief pastor of the Zion Temple in Coventry. We've got Counsel Frances Dungu, who is a divorce lawyer. And we are also very happy late in Kampala. We're actually getting two people from Kampala. Sheikh Ashraf Mutagubia was just joined us. but also Hajjat Zaitun Kachama, who is a marriage counselor, person who has dealt with a lot and actually trying to spice marriages. Before we get to divorce, I think it starts with the marriage. But in some instances, you actually find that the divorce happens the day people marry because of those little things that sometimes we do miss out on. And as a result, they become the problem that they become. Well, let's just open up the conversation tonight. Francis, Council, Francis, if you can just unmute yourself, please. Welcome to the conversation. Then I'll go to our religious leaders to take us through, navigate us through this situation. Welcome again tonight, and thank you for last week. You left many people actually just saying you are the highlight within last week, as well as Chef Luka in that conversation. Welcome to the conversation tonight. We last week we were looking at the reasons. We were looking at the reasons that lead people into divorce. A very difficult scenario, but then now we are in the process of divorce. Probably give us a picture as a divorce lawyer. How does someone come to you? How does someone come to you and say, we want to start a divorce process? Probably give us that picture. Because there are times when, for example, I have a friend, when they arrived in the United Kingdom, they were going to claim asylum. And for 2 or 5 minutes, they were just waiting. They were wondering, how do they actually claim? And the person wondered so much how they would go about it. Unrelated, but in this case of divorce, how does someone come to you, approach you, and give you instructions on divorce?
First of all, thank you so much again for hosting me on your program. Pleasure. And I do thank all the listeners and everybody who is participating. This is a very sad topic, but a reality in a sense. And I think it's very good that you're bringing it out, that people talk about it, because sometimes these things, people only talk about them when they only have just happened. Mm-hmm. And going back to the question you've asked me, how do people come to me? Usually people come or clients walk in when they're actually either they've been served with a petition for divorce, or they themselves would like to divorce somebody. They always come having long stories and reasons, and some of them very, very convoluted. Sometimes you need to understand. It's basically they're trying to explain to you a situation which has been probably going on for 5 years in less than 30 minutes. Mm. Usually they are very distressed. Usually sometimes they don't even know what actually they want. And sometimes it's a cry for help. Sometimes I feel as if my job, you kind of like flit between somebody who is just listening as if it's a counseling job and you're like, okay, I'm not a counselor here. I'm here to give legal advice. But it kind of like becomes very, very difficult sometimes to separate the two. But the most important thing is that the first session, really, you just have to listen and to kind of like unpick what is happening. Because sometimes you might even give them advice, and that's not something which they would like even to hear. For instance, somebody who comes to you saying, I want to divorce my husband or my wife. And then actually when you look at it, you give them advice that probably that's not the right step, especially at that particular time. And that's not what they want to hear. So that's the difficulty sometimes which and sometimes they don't even know about the process for the divorce in terms of what's the procedure which they've got to go through. Some people think, like one of the clip which you have just played for us here, whereby the husband wrote a letter and said, bye, this is the reasons, already is explaining himself as an ex-husband. I'm sorry, and you moving out of the house and going to Virginia and leaving does not mean you're not married. You're still married. You're not an ex-husband until actually you have divorced. But in their mind, even when you say, oh, your wife, is like, no, that's not my wife, that's my ex-wife. They think that by the time they make a decision that I am out, then they are divorced, and then they can go on and do whatever they want. If they have properties, they can go and sell them. If they have got without the consultation of their wife, if they are moving monies left, right, and center. So it's quite difficult to say that actually this is what the law says and this is what you need to be doing.
Mhm.
So in brief, that is how they do present. So probably later on, I'll take you through briefly the
actual process.
the
Yes,
process of the
fantastic.
procedure for the divorce.
Thank you very much. Well, just to warm up our seats, let's bring on Pastor Noel Iradukunda. Pastor, if you're there, then I'll bring Sheikh Ashraf so that we can open up the conversation. This is a wide-ranging conversation that is touching different faiths. It doesn't matter, when a divorce situation happens, it will involve all these different parties, and it carries people along the way, people who get affected as a result. Pastor, if you are there, I can see your own. Do you mind putting on your video? Ahuri comfortable?
No, I don't mind at all. Good evening, Kassim.
Fantastic. Good evening. Nice to have you joining the conversation here on Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. How is Coventry?
Coventry is well, Kassim. Thank you. And thank you for having me on your program.
Brilliant.
And thank you to all the listeners.
Thank you. Well, the question now is, of course, when we talk about divorce, it is one of the very hated things. I mean, from a religious perspective, it is one of the things that we would try to avoid at every expense, at all costs. How does divorce happen? From a religious perspective, when do you allow divorce to happen? I'm sure the happiness that goes in churches when you are wedding people would not be the same happiness that happens when people, because they won't even come to church to divorce.
Absolutely. And you're right in saying that it's not a happy moment at all when it comes to divorce. I think it's really important before you talk about divorce that you talk about the prevention part of it, which is really in the preparation of the marriage. Most of the time, marriage is celebrated in a sense that somebody has gone, as they say, head over heel in love with somebody else. And we lose track of the preparation side. We lose track of many things that need to be put in place before the two are joined in matrimony. So
like what, Pastor? Like what things, bro?
Well, it's really, if you think about the similarities, the differences, and the talking about every aspect of their lives, one of the things that you need to ensure is that they understand where the other person stands in every aspect. That's really important. It's important to know where they think about money. It's really important on what they're going to think about, how many children they want, what their future, how they see future. Because one of the clips you mentioned, you put on was about the woman was talking about changing the other person. Is the danger of thinking because they love me, they will change for me.
For me, yes.
There tends to be a misunderstanding that a person is going to change another person. So there has to be really a good preparation to reduce the risk of divorce. So preparation goes a long way in prevention. Now, really in Christianity, I'm really a bit careful to talk about Christianity, really, because
it's wide.
It's so
wide.
It's so large. Yes. But it's safe for me to talk about the biblical perspective. Absolutely. Rather than the Christian perspective, because, as you put it, it's quite large. The biblical perspective of divorce will be mostly, as of anything else, we mostly that of trying to restore first the person. Because when a person comes into the mindset of divorce, they're coming with lots of wounds, lots of hurts from the experience in the marriage. So it's important first to deal with the wounds, to deal with the issues and the hurts, and start restoring the person in trying to get to the bottom of what caused it. Yes, you mentioned a few things that may be related to the actual marriage, but often you realize that being the woman or the man, some of the causes of the divorce are beyond the two of them. There's some things related to their background, to the way they were, their upbringing, the way they were themselves, they viewed the parents' relationships, because you can only give what you have, and what you have is what you sow, really. And often, unless you go into the background and start dealing with that part, you cannot really get to the bottom of it. It's never just the two people. There's always more to it
other
than meets
factors.
the eye.
Now, Pastor, because this is a wider conversation, and once we open up the microphones, you'll start hearing, I'm sure there are people burning there with testimonies that they would like to share in terms of their own experiences. We shall widen actually into that perspective, look deeper into that. My question to you then, which is a short and simple question then to allow us to navigate through this, is there are so many divorces happening in today's world as compared to, say, the times of our parents and grandparents. What has happened? Have you failed as priests? Have you failed as people in the church, as people of God? Have you failed to prepare these people? Because you talked about preparation for the marriage, before the marriage. What has happened? What is led to all these divorces that are happening now?
I wish I had the answer. But really, the reality of the matter is that indeed divorce have increased. Whether that's a failure, many would tell you that actually, people are in a position where they can express themselves more now than they used to be in the past. People are freer there's the what they call it, the economical freedom that allows people to live independently, all of that. But the reality for me is that marriage, from a biblical perspective, has to be understood not as a contract, but as a covenant. Contract is something that can be broken. Covenant shouldn't be broken. Now, for me, the preparation part is where the failure is at. And if preparation has not...
And whose fault is that, Pastor? Is that you, the preparers, or the people who actually end up going into the marriage itself?
This is where I was going to go. Preparation is not the 1-2 months or sometimes less period of time that the religious person, the pastor in our case, spends with the couple. Preparation happens in the household. It's what our children see in ourselves. That is part of preparation, because the young man who grows seeing the relationship with mom and dad will be most likely repeat what they see. And generally, preparation happens in the household. And equipping the families is equipping the couples of tomorrow. So that's, for me, where the challenge has been. The challenge has been in the way that society now views families. And I think that preparation as a whole should not be seen as a 2-week, but as a lifestyle.
All right.
And now you have societies living in a very sort of not sort of nucleus father-mother type of relationship. It makes it even more difficult in terms of the marriage of tomorrow. Who has failed?
Yeah.
I think as a whole, it's really difficult to pinpoint at us and say that the priests and the sort of the religious people have failed, but we certainly have a big role to play in ensuring that couples can stay together.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Pastor Noel Iradukunda. Continue to be there. We are just bringing in Sheikh Ashraf Mutaguria, who is in Kampala, where it's actually very late, 36 minutes past 11 o'clock in Kampala. Sheikh Ashraf, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much for joining us pretty late. You have heard Pastor Noel delving into the issues surrounding divorce from a biblical perspective. Maybe because this is a cross-generational, cross-religious, a multi-faith conversation that we are having, it would be interesting and right for us to hear the Islamic perspective. Why? Because like from the Christian perspective or the biblical perspective, at least it is when they are uniting husband and wife, the word is still doth us part. And the idea now would have been that ideally people shouldn't break up, but we found that there are reasons beyond control that lead people to break up. Does Islam view marriage in the same way, rather divorce in the same way? What is Islam's view of divorce?
Well, thank you, Sheikh Kassim and Council Pastor. It's an honor to be here. Unfortunately, I can't turn on my video. I would have loved for people to see me.
Has the electricity gone?
Not really.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, please. At least we can hear you.
It's pretty late in Kampala, so
okay,
we're all messed up here.
No problem.
But going back to the question you've asked, I mean, divorce. Islam tries to look at divorce before it happens. I liked the point where the pastor was like, preparation begins by through parenting, and what we come to be as parents is what the children will be practicing. And Islam starts from here. You prevent a divorce by parenting well, by treating your spouse well. Now, that is you preventing future divorces to happen. Now, also Islam prevents divorce, of course, through the process of due diligence. You might have gotten introduced to the process of looking for a spouse and doing this and that. This is all trying to avoid a divorce because of the dangers and the harm that comes along with that divorce. But also, during marriage, Islam prevents divorce. And how does it do that? Responsibilities and assigning responsibilities. You know, one of the challenges of humans is like we are more of beings that believe in hierarchies. Mm-hmm. So if you don't assign responsibilities, you're going to have a fight, even amongst your children. You need to show them who is elder, how they should be treating and behaving. So there has to be that bit of hierarchy, not a toxic one, but there has to be responsibilities. Everyone should be looking at, besides the love and besides all the beautiful things we watch on movies. Mm-hmm. There has to be responsibilities and duties to fulfill. And if you don't do that, you're prone to getting into a divorce, and just because you don't know where what you're supposed to be doing.
Now, and you refer to the process within marriage, avoiding divorce, and you're speaking about the hierarchy. But between husband and wife, what exactly transpires? Well, you know, does Islam have a sort of a step-by-step approach? Do you just rush to divorce, or there are steps that you must be able to fulfill before you can actually go to divorce? Because this is something that will throw to the council at some point as well.
Well, when you go back to the Islamic jurisprudence regarding marriage and divorce, mm-hmm. you realize that this is not creed, that it is carved in stone, it can't change. You will see different societies handling divorce processes differently, and it will still be Islam. But maybe basically there has to be some bit of mediation between the two partners, husband and wife, before they divorce. There is processes within the house, even before you go to the sheikh or the religious leader.
Oh, so between husband and wife, there is encouragement to have a conversation around the sort of disagreements that they are having.
Yeah, of course, we if we had time, we would talk about what Islam says about competition, rather communication between the two. There has to be communication. You have to be able to sit down and talk and speak and navigate all of these things together. Now, if you fail, Islam encourages mediation. So you should, if you can talk about it with people from your family and then people from his family. So this is how you start. And this is not yet even, it has not yet gone to court. So you're still trying to avoid divorce. And then until you divorce. And you know, there is something actually very, very dangerous when it comes to Islam and this issue of divorce. Islam discourages anything any language that might mean you have divorced. This is why even if you jokingly say that you have divorced you, it has happened. So that you should restrain from.
If you simply utter, "I've divorced you," it could actually take effect just by
if you use that term explicitly, or any statement in your language that explicitly means divorce, you have actually divorced. There are just 2 more to go before you lose it all. And why Islam does that is that let us do all that we do. Let us say whatever we want to say, but we should not get close to playing with divorce and making it a joke. So this is what I can say about that. But generally, we believe that divorce is not good until it is. And also maybe to point out a difference between Islam and Christianity, as I've learned from Pastor, is that to the Muslims and in the Islamic tradition, marriage is a moral contract.
It's a social contract.
It's not covenant. And of course here we might have a few differences, but generally we all have to protect the marriage and make sure that divorce doesn't happen at all.
You know, when Pastor Noel mentioned the difference between contract and covenant, I actually thought, even from an Islamic jurisprudence level, Sheikh Ashraf, once we look at the translation, the interpretation of covenant, you might find actually that probably in an Islamic perspective, marriage would combine contract and covenant in one, and whether you can keep them together without a clash, that is probably a question that we shall try to delve into. Thank you very much, Sheikh Ashraf. Thank you very much. And we, just to let you know, if you have just joined us, the conversation we are having tonight is we are talking about divorce, but divorce in terms of the process of divorce. And to help us navigate, of course, you, the people, you, the viewers, are the most important part of this, because we are about to hear conversations surrounding your own situations, because from them, then we can pick the experts now to help us navigate some of these. And to help us do that tonight, we've got Counsel Francis Dungu, who is a divorce lawyer. We've got Sheikh Ashraf Mutagubia, all the way from Kampala, who is an Islamic student or scholar of knowledge, a student of knowledge. We've got Pastor Noel Iradukunda, who is a senior pastor in the Zion Temple Church in Coventry. And we've got as well a counselor, marriage counselor, Zaitun Kachama, Hajat Zaitun Kachama, who is all the way in Uganda, who's been trying to help out. We actually have other experts on here that probably will like to share something as we go along. The way we do it is, if you have anything that is burning, please just raise your hand the Zoom way, and we will pick you and find out. Now, I think before I go back to the council, it's good that we hear just a part of the stories, given what we have had from a religious perspective, from an Islamic perspective. Actually, Ashraf, I think I put a question to Pastor Noel, which I would like to put to you before I open the conversation, which is a simple question regarding the number of divorce cases that are happening now. Since all of you talk about the preparation, the pre-marital preparation of the spouses, looking at the number of divorces that are taking place currently, what does it speak about, religious leaders? Have you failed as religious leaders to convey the message of preparation? What has gone wrong that we can have these divorces? What has happened to Christians? Young people are just divorcing left, right, and center. What is going on from your perspective? Have you failed as religious leaders?
It is a very tough question you're calling simple. I mean, that's dangerous of you, Dr. Kassim. I mean, I would say that a lot has happened and a lot has changed. And the globalization, the introduction, the school and everything, a lot is happening, which is also coming back to not only affect marriages and the importance of marriage, but also every structure is being challenged. The church and the mosque is being challenged. The culture is being challenged. Everything is being challenged because of this new thing. So marriage definitely has to be challenged in this regard. Mm-hmm. So, of course, there is lots of freedoms and everyone can do what they want. And of course, people have tested it before marriage, and then after marriage, it feels like a prison. So let us go back to the freedom. There is the general understanding of the purpose of marriage and the general vision for the nations, the different nations and families. Things have shifted, and all of this is really, it makes it hard to explain exactly where religion has failed. Because religion
it's not one thing, it's a combination of factors that have taken place.
We could navigate it. We could have very many conversations about it to discover where the problem has come from. But I believe it's everything being challenged, actually. And there is no structure which is not being challenged. So I think we just need to have these conversations once and again to regain purpose and to find our north again.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Ashraf Mutaguria. So I'll just open up the microphone to you people just to share a few stories, and then we'll go to the experts, the experts in faith and experts in law, just to sort of navigate us through the processes. Hajara, I was coming to you. Just wanted to get your own take. Hajara, assalamu alaikum. Hajara, are you there? Or are you at work, unable to speak and just listening to the conversation from the background? Hajara, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, I'll just try and look. Oh, Hajara, you're there. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Hello, Hajara. Oh, you just came on and then you unmuted me. Muted again. Was that accidental? I can see a hand up. Zaitun Kachamba. Yes, please, if we can go ahead. Hajat Zaitun, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's late where you are. Oh, Hajara says she can't talk at the moment. Okay, Zaitun. Divorce.
Is he snoring?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm delighted by the invitation and this kind of engagement. Thank you very much. May Allah reward you.
Amen.
I want to speak as a counselor, and I want to speak as a wife, and of course, someone who is connected to our community where we are facing this, and it's a little scary. But I work in a faith-based counseling organization where we are trying to counsel people in inclination to our faith.
Your faith being Islam, yeah?
Yeah, the faith is Islam, though we can stretch it a little bit to even Christianity, because when it comes to marriage, it's funny enough, the jurisdiction is, there is no line in between when it comes to marriage. Actually, most of the things that we used to help each other are nearly the same. As you might know, when Peter and Susan are married, when they convert to Islam, we do not do nikah again.
They do not.
Yeah, that ring just crosses over to Islam. So it means this institution is very, very important, and God really recognizes it as one of the most important things in life.
Now,
we need to remind our people and ourselves that marriage is probably the best thing that can happen to an adult. Two, we need to remember that marriage is the biggest and most important act of faith. For us in Islam, our Prophet told us that marriage is half your worship or your faith. So it is 50% of your acts of worship. You might spend, the rest of your life at the Kaaba. You might spend the rest of your life in the mosque praying, but the marks that you get there can never even get to a half of what you get in your marriage, no matter how bad it is. So people need to know the weight of being married. And I want to bring it a little more clearer that we always forget that we have Satan or the devil or Iblis or Shaitan on the side, who is on the lookout day and night, collecting people who are going to be with him in hell. Pastor is listening, and all of us are listening. But logically, Shaitan has gone on to kill the institution of marriage because it gives it mileage. When you kill a marriage, you have brought in, first and foremost, you have broken a nuclear institution of the community, because we all know that when family breaks down, the society is at stake.
I'm only coming in here because I wanted us just to remain. I see where you're going, and sorry
Yes.
to interrupt.
Yes, please.
On the line of divorce, because with all the beauty of marriage, by the time we end up where we are at, which is the divorce now, it means that now that process has failed. For the people that come to you for counseling, for all the elements that you deal with,
yes,
take us through what they present. What is the big issue about what is leading them into divorce? Because probably that might help probably to ignite and touch at the heart of the problem.
The sad story or the observations that we make is it's simply us forgetting that marriage is not for us only. Marriage is a tool that our Creator has given us to be straight when we are, worshiping Him. It is a route where we're supposed to procreate. It is a route where we're supposed to multiply, and so on and so forth. Most of us, or most of the people who are going into the marriage institution, think they are going in for personal pleasure. They think they are going in for status quo. They think they are going in maybe for money or for some sort of investment. We are forgetting the bigger picture of it being an act of worship. So people who are coming in our offices, we don't have so many people who come in when they are divorced. Most of them are going to, they are failing or they want to part. And our job that we are trying to do, maybe we have tried to do successfully, is to help people to stay in, to stick in there, to give it a different, lens, to look at it in a different lens, because the reasons people give you when they come in office is like, this guy, I saw a message in his phone. This guy is not putting, Kameza. This guy is
Kameza, for those who don't understand, is the money that
Kameza, the upkeep, this daily upkeep.
Ours is a global community. So
yeah, I understand. Us here in the Ugandan setting, we have the daily upkeep. The husband is meant to live every day. So here we call it Kameza. So you have this lady saying that this guy doesn't have work, he doesn't have sexual prowess, and so many things that could probably become smaller if we gave marriage the true value. So what we do in our office is to take people back to the foundation. Before you split, before you get out, can you please go back and revisit the foundation of your marriage? We haven't got so many cases here in our office of people who are divorcing. We are lucky, but we have first people who are at the brink of, getting out. They want to get out, they are tired, and so on and so forth.
I wanted to ask you the question, and which will allow me now to start going to the members, the viewers, the audience tonight, just to sort of share experiences. It might not necessarily be about you if you feel uncomfortable talking about your own situation, but quite often you realize that in this conversation, in this particular program, we open up. Before you know it, you're actually having, opening up, and by opening up, sometimes it helps, to heal some of the problems. So my question to you, Hajat Zaitun, is for the people that come into you, you've mentioned, people mentioning issues of money, people mentioning issues of, they thought someone was something and they don't find that. You've mentioned the issue of sex, which is a big, big issue, like in many relationships. You've spoken about the Kameza money. Now, you've said that these are small things that you try to talk to them about the bigger picture in marriage. But these are the things that matter to me. If I come to you and the sex is not working, this is really deep. This is personal to me. Why would you try to probably minimize it? Probably by not understanding why it matters to me as a counselor.
I don't want to be misquoted. We don't minimize any reason, because every reason, no matter how small it might seem, is that person's reason. So it gives it enough weight, because people will come in with a very we don't want to even hear. For instance, I would give an instance where a girl comes in and she says that this guy is cheating on me, and she claims that he's cheating simply because he goes in the bathroom and speaks from a closed door. She doesn't have evidence. She doesn't have. It's just like a suspicion. But this is something that has become so heavy for her, and she feels she wants to get out. So we, as counselors, we do not minimize any reason. So because all the reasons, no matter how small or big, they can be overcome.
Right.
That
I just wanted to be sure that at least we've known, because I think from speaking, it had sounded like, you tried to talk about the bigger picture of marriage. And then
no.
Issues
You cannot do that. You can't do that because this is some person's reason that she's telling you she wants to move out. It might sound small to any other person, but this is the reason she's presenting. So we don't downsize it. We really take it as that is why we want to help people, no matter how big, even though you found this guy in your bed. The minute you realize that marriage is a ticket, nearly an automatic ticket to Jannah, you just have to switch. Of course, some people might not take it, they might not take it very quickly. They might not change so quickly, but we struggle so much with this Muslim person, with this Christian believer that, listen, there is a bigger picture. Because even when you moved out, you're going to find similar or nearly the same challenges.
All right. Thank you very much, Zaitun. Well, now I think I just want to get more now of the people, if we can just get into some of the stories, just to say welcome very much to some of the people who have joined the conversation tonight. I know some followers of Pastor Noel Radukunda who have come in. I'll just make the mentions quite quickly. There is Dus Micheline, there is Ruth Bahati, there is Sandrine Radukunda, and Bella. These are some of just the names that I've seen. I think Felega Choir, I've seen here, hand up, 75W Radio. Yes, go ahead, please. 75. Is that Baker?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh Kayira. Abarigani.
Salama kabisa. When they right, divorce. Yes, divorce. You've not been divorced before.
Definitely not, and I pray Allah keeps them far away. But I just want to ask, since we have a sheikh, we have a pastor, we have counsel, I believe, right?
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to ask, where does it say that when the divorce happens, the kids literally have to stay with one party? Because I had a lady who's from Guinea-Bissau. Her husband brought her from Guinea and brought her here, but then when they had issues, the husband took the kids. She has no contact with the kids, so she reached out to me for some kind of like help. So she literally has no contact with the kids, and this is a lady that came with the kids from Guinea to the UK, but now she literally can't, because they had the husband changed the school, everything. So right now she has no contact with the kids, no contact with her husband. So she's trying to reach out to social services, but this is the norm in the diaspora. I don't know whether it's the same thing in Uganda or Africa or wherever, but in the diaspora, the thing is, once they split up, one party feels like they need to take the kids, like, let me hurt him, but then
use them as the weapon. That's the question I think I'll put to Council Francis, but also it's a question that our religious leaders should address as well. What would be the normal way? What is the Islamic way in terms of separation? Where do the children go? What is the biblical way, or where should the children go? Thank you very much, Baker. I'll just open up a little bit more. I think I was hoping to hear some of these personal stories from people divorcing. Hajat Sarah, I know you are not divorced, but I'd like to tap into your own knowledge, because you're quite widely knowledgeable on some of these issues. What is happening for divorce cases that are becoming so many?
Well, I've seen people who have been very devastated when they are divorced. I know of a lady who has lost almost everything. She was almost about to commit suicide when she was divorced. She resorted to doing alcohol. She started drinking. She used to be a very staunch Islamic lady. She took off her hijab and started wearing short dresses because she didn't see any sense of, sticking to Allah had let her down. She joined a group of women who they call it Tisenyi, and she started eating mira. You know mira?
The cat, yes.
Yeah. And sometimes when her children would visit, she would be sitting behind at the back of her house, having a leso. You know what the leso is? Tied right. Kanga, her boobs out, and smoking pipes with four heads or sometimes 9. She's just smoking with that pipe, and I think she had resorted to witchcraft.
What happened? What happened?
Well, her husband divorced her, and she couldn't believe that the husband could divorce her. You know, it took her probably by surprise. But the man, I think they had problems, and most of the time she never really looked into them. She thought it was just no more. You know, when you live with someone and they complain, you tend to think, oh, maybe that's him. He's always nagging. He's always complaining about every little thing. But then when the marriage ended and she was divorced, her life took a big turn. So I've seen that lady. We were living in a community whereby we had a mosque that joined us, and she used to be part of that mosque. That's how I got to know about her problems. We tried to talk to her, and she just distanced herself. She lost all social embarrassment. She was not embarrassed by anything she did, the point that she just slept with every Tom and Dick. And you know, she had turned into alcohol, and she had a kind of a house which didn't have a ceiling at the top. So when she's in the other room and having sex, the children would hear all the noises she used to make, you know, when she's drunk. And one time she had one of her sons was like 20 years. He confronted her in the morning. That time she had brought in a taxi driver. You know, she was a very, a woman of class, you see. But when things went wrong, she just really lost it, you see. And one time when that son of ours confronted her, you know what she did? She pulled her clothes up and showed the boy her private parts and said, you didn't come from this thing of mine. You're not my son. So you see, some people can really end it in a very bad way. So it's a very sensitive thing. And I really feel sorry for that woman, because I don't think anyone could ever help her. We tried, and all the time she would say, oh, it's because you don't know anything about it. It's not happened to you, so you do not understand. You're just mocking me, you know. And the husband had to restrict her from contacting the children. The children were taken to the other wife the man had married. And all the time, all the plans she used to make was to try and maybe burgle that house, the new lady, the new wife's house, which the husband had put up for her. And all she was always planning is to go into that house, smash everything, break everything. Those were the plans. Every time you'd speak to her, she was always constantly crying. You know, she was very inconsolable. It was terrible for her. So I don't know. Only Allah knows how best she is at the moment. I'm not in Uganda, but it really made me very sad.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for that deep thought on that. Well, I'll just take one more person and then we take it to the experts and then back to the people so that we can have a back-to-back conversation. I'll come to David Ojimaduka. David, you are a first-timer here in this conversation. Good to have you. Welcome. Hello, David. Are you there? Hello, David. You can unmute yourself. Hello, David. Hi, David. Oh, David says, thanks, but unable to speak. Okay, understood. I'll just move in because I just needed to have one more person and then we can definitely open up the conversation much deeper, just to sort of get a feel of what is going on, what happens out there. Joy, good evening. Are you there? Hello, Joy. Hello, Joy. Hey, Joy is also quiet. Okay, I'll try one more. I'm still just trying to get a few different names. Oh, I can see people that have taken a long time without even seeing. Naila Amida in Coventry. Very nice to see you joining the conversation tonight. Very welcome. Sophie Hussein, Hajat Joeria, all the people that actually you don't see normally have joined the conversation tonight. Thank you very much. We can't take your attendance for granted. Hajat Joey, I would like to come to you and just get a feel on divorce and what is going on. Hajat Joey, are you in a position to speak? Or should I cross to our experts? Hello, Hajat Joey, you can just unmute yourself. Hello? Okay, I'll go to the newbies now. I'll just continue checking out on the newbies before I can open up the conversation. Oh, Hajat Joweria is also working. Many people at work and listening in into the conversation just based at work. Sandrine, tunakuachilie, karibu. Hello, Sandrine. I'm assuming you are either daughter or wife to Pastor Noel. Oh, so everybody's unable to speak now. Everybody's at work for some reason. Okay,
She's my wife, Kassim.
She's your wife. I was thinking it's either daughter or wife. Okay.
Yeah, I think she's upstairs somewhere with the little ones.
No problem, no problem. I'll just take you. Assalamu alaikum. I just need one more person, and then I'll cross the experts. Probably that might help to open up. Normally, this conversation is very, very open. I don't know what's happened to people today. Suddenly, everybody's shy. All we need is one person probably to break the ice, and quite often that's how it works. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh.
Probably you'll take my sadness away in terms of conversation tonight. We've had the experts, but then we've hardly had any conversations from the people. Well, first of all, your own take on divorce.
Sheikh, I don't really have much to say. I mostly came here to learn more.
No, it's perfectly fine. But probably you know a friend, you have a friend who has gone through divorce, or you yourself probably had a situation of sorts.
Okay. Basically, a friend, yeah, my friend, they both come from Uganda, the wife and the husband, anyway, the exes now. Yeah. So they basically separated, and hence they divorced. And now it's the woman who's got the 2 kids, and basically the man just did the typical old age Uganda thing where men just don't care about the kids. Mm-hmm. So it looks like now, since he left, she's still hurting, and even hurting more than when he was in the house, because she used to tell me that when he was in the house, it was like as if he's absent. He's there, but he's not really there. Mm-hmm. He wasn't affectionate to her. He wasn't disengaging father to the kids, and the kids are girls. So obviously girls need the dads, or they've got that. They really want to play with their dads all the time. So he did not give them any time, mm-hmm. like to play or to do anything with the kids, and no time with her. Anytime he was in the house, she used to say that you could go on the phone, like Facebook, and start chatting with different people. So basically, with that, they'd been together for over 10 years, but he was really absent. He was there, but not really there.
He was presently absent.
Yes, physically there, but emotionally, everything absent, yeah. And she also complained about the bedroom, that it was just rubbish. So truly, if you look at this couple, it was because she ended up with him for wrong reasons, really. Reasons being, he was the Muslim man there, and she needed to get married. She needed to have kids. So she got the kids, but then saw that no, she couldn't do another 10 years in the relationship.
It was a marriage of convenience, in other words. Okay. Oh, thank you very much, Amina. Thank you very, very much. I'll come to Francis, Council Francis now. Let's get back, and then I'll bring in Sheikh Ashraf and Pastor Iradukunda to start navigating, because I realize this is a very sensitive topic, and therefore you find people are sort of, not moving, and people are sort of slow. But I think quite often what happens with these kinds of conversations is for one person to come out and share their experience, and then the rest, you might be surprised as to the sort of ripple effect that has. And it starts just with one person. All you need is to have that story out, someone who is hurting, because I'm sure amongst the people that are attending tonight's conversation, there are people who are deeply hurting. Men out who, when you have conversations outside here, all you hear is, I'm hurting up to this point. And this divorce has been really a pain for me. Council Francis, welcome back again. For those who have just joined us, we've got 4 experts actually tonight sort of helping us to navigate through this difficult terrain. 2 religious leaders, Sheikh Ashraf from Kagubia, who is in Kampala, and Pastor Noel Radukunda from the Zion Temple Church in Coventry. We've got a counselor, Ajat Zaitun Kachama, and then we've got our counsel, the lawyer, divorce lawyer, Francis Dungu, helping us to look at this. Now, counsel, let's just take to the actual process now. How does the process of divorce move? Because many of us have ended up in the Western countries. We are not very familiar with what happens. Sometimes people just walk into the minefield that is divorce. Before they know it, they're almost running mad because of what it entails. Take us through that process. What does actually the divorce process entail?
Okay, thank you. I think the sad thing about divorce, it's usually it's an action which is being driven by emotions. And which means that people come into it not because they have absolutely so problem, but because, and sometimes feelings are not actual. They exaggerate the consequences. They kind of like become blind of the consequences of what is going to happen. But usually anyway, when they come to us, and like for a counselor, the counselor will try to put things in perspective. They usually, for me as a lawyer, you come to me, my job is to give you legal advice, depending what your instructions are to me, and then I'll give you the legal advice according to what you actually want. I've got to act in what is in your best interest. I'm not there to judge you. I don't know whether actually we have contributed to more divorces than not, but because I'm there to do what you want me to do, what your instructions are. If the instructions are, I want to petition this woman for divorce, and these are my grounds and all that kind of stuff, this is what I think, this is what I do. But I think in general, even though we do that, we always have to give clients advice of actually the whole process and what entails. And I would actually encourage people to seek legal advice before you actually go into the divorce itself. You need to know the consequences. Unfortunately, with the way the law actually looks at it, it's like you can't look at the financial matters of what happens after unless you petition for a divorce. Right. Which in my, I didn't write the law, but in my view, I think that is wrong, because people need to know what is going to happen for them to think, actually, is this something which I am actually prepared to get into? Putting that aside, according to the law, I talked about it last time, you can't file for a petition to divorce unless you've been in a marriage for 1 year. So let's say you got married 3 months ago, you've got all the reasons, but you cannot. And the law is there for a reason. Basically, it's not encouraging divorce. It's like try to stay and see things which they are going to work. Mediation is not compulsory. According to the law here, even in Uganda, I'm counseling in Uganda, I'm counseling in the UK, it's not compulsory, but it is encouraged. You know, it is something which is encouraged. And later on, when the matters go to court, the judge will look at who did not actually engage through the mediation process. And there might be wasted cost orders made against whoever did not engage in terms of resolving the matter amicably. So before people actually not take it on, you need to think, is this something which I want to do just to trash? Basically, it is all to try and see that if things can be resolved amicably without engaging into the court. So the process which you have to know, we are here in the diaspora. Some people, you might end up having a couple, maybe they do live in Uganda, they live here, or they live in Rwanda, and then they want to petition for divorce. The key thing which you have to think about is does the country which I live in have got jurisdiction to deal with my matter? You know, so here in the UK, at least one of the person has got to be habitually resident in the UK. You can't, or, I mean, you might be Uganda, even in Uganda, it's the same, applies to Uganda. So you might have got married in Uganda and you all don't live in Uganda. And then you can file a petition for divorce in Uganda. There is that habitual residence. You must be living in that jurisdiction. So that's kind of like the procedure. Usually they come very frustrated. They want to divorce. And that is another hurdle which they've got to jump. Secondly, they need to, you know, last time I talked about the 5 ground rules. It must be one of those rules, the ground for divorce.
If you can briefly just repeat them for those who were not here last week, just the 5 ground rules for
the grounds for divorce. First, they must have been desertion. There must be either the behavior is unreasonable behavior, there must be adultery, and whoever has if you are the wife or the husband, you cannot actually tolerate it. Either you have separated for 2 years, and then you've left your husband or your wife and you've been separated for over 2 years. And with that, actually, you need to consent, because I get clients whereby I said, we've been separated for 2 years, when actually there is a day within those 2 years when they lived together as husband and wife. So that becomes a problem. So unless somebody consents to it, you can't. Then the 5th one is that you have separated for 5 years. You know, you are not living together. Therefore, what they're trying to say here, the laws, it's not religious, but the law tries to say that they're trying to make it a bit difficult for people to divorce. And I know that many people divorce quite a lot, but they want you to come out of it when they say that the marriage really has broken down. You can't bring it back. 5 years, you've separated. So you can't say you're my husband when you've been away for 5 years. Then now, I don't need your consent.
So you will know, and you can see from the chat room, actually, I'll just read these 2 quick messages and then bring the question to you. Which is here in the chat room is beginning to heat up now, and that's one bit of the conversation that I always like. Someone is saying, to be honest, I would prefer having a partner to a husband, because even just the word marriage sounds so scary to me. Now, that is also according to your definitions now. Laila Kantu says, so,
Jake, you're disappearing. Your voice is disappearing.
So really, just because I've turned just on the side. Oh my God. Says people call partners husbands simply because they have kids together. Now, Council, there's a dilemma that we have here, especially for people. Husband or wife leaves Uganda, comes to UK, goes through the process. You know that someone settles here, unable to be with the partner. They can't travel back in the circumstances. Husband is still stuck or wife is still stuck. Now, one of the partners realizes, I've got the papers now, but it's so difficult. We've been away from one another for 5 years. All the emotions have been lost over that time. You start with the phone calls, when you've just come 1 month, 2 months, 1 year in, second year, you start loosening. And before you know it, someone is asking for a divorce. It has happened, especially with wives, although the husbands also do that oftentimes. Maybe speaking as a man now, I'm sort of throwing the stone into the bush. But there might be those circumstances where the 5 years have elapsed, but the 5 years elapsing were not necessarily the result of a deliberate effort. So in that case, would the 5 years still count if the circumstances were beyond our control? Probably
yes. They will, because they've been separated for 5 years. And the husband does not need, or the wife does not need to consent to it. They've been separated for 5 years. In law, then that marriage is not really a marriage which is like together in a sense. So because the period, but if the 5 years, let's say one person, because in any relationship, the way the law looks at it, if you've been separated for one person is in one country or the other, at least after 2 or 3 years, you'd go meet up somehow, somewhere. But 1 year, 2 years, 3 years.
No papers.
it becomes really difficult for if that wife or husband wants to come out of that marriage, they will actually be able to have a valid ground for divorce. So if you kind of like move on, and I think this is where people also don't realize, I mean, the process, they think it's just going to be, oh, I'm going to petition for divorce and then that's it, I'm going to get it. The answer is no. You need to get original papers. You need to draft the petition for divorce. It must be drafted properly. You need to have the proper original marriage certificate for it. Some people have lost their documents and they're like, cancel now, this photocopy will work. No, I'm afraid it won't work. It must be the original. That is if you have satisfied through all those steps. You've been, 1 year has gone. You are habitually resident in that country, Uganda or UK, and it has been approved. Then you've got one of those grounds which I mentioned. Then you can petition for the divorce. But again, it goes through, you draft that application, attach it with the marriage certificate, and you file. Some people get problems. So filing for divorce that doesn't mean that now you're divorced. It is a lengthy process. And the law makes it a bit lengthy for a reason that during that process, should one back out, you will still be married, and I know people think in about 2 months or 1 month, they're going to be divorced. No, this is a process which takes at least 6 months, and the court makes it that difficult that even by the time before the judge makes like the decree absolute, that's when you are divorced, but without making that, you're still married. Because
Council, I think I'll bring in the religious leaders simply because I think they've been away too long as you get to a very interesting bit. Sorry to be keeping it because what I want is for us to have a sort of an interaction, a sort of a conversation. You've touched on something that has sort of scratched the surface of my excitement. And that is during the time of divorce, from an Islamic perspective, and I'll bring in Ashraf, then go to Pastor Noel, simply because Ashraf might disappear anytime because of the electricity in Uganda. Sheikh Ashraf might disappear. But also importantly, because within Islam, if you get divorced, if you start the process of what is divorce, if you say, for example, to the person that you have divorced, and the Sheikh will probably elaborate on this, you have to stay with the person for 3 months. So they have to wait for 3 months. The 3 months being, actually, it's not 3 months as months, it's 3 periods. Periods as in them going through their monthly cycle, the monthly period. Reason being that you are trying to protect, to ensure that if this woman, for example, is pregnant, the rules now change in terms of her divorce. Where the divorce would have been 3 months normally, it becomes 9 months. So her period now expands to the period as to when she delivers her child. The moment she delivers her child, then the divorce takes effect. So the 3 months waiting period is over that period that she will be clean over that period. But also importantly, that you do not touch her. So if you are still sharing the same space, except in the case of, say, domestic violence, but you have to share the same space. So you are still staying in the same house. You might decide probably to go into separate rooms because of what is happening, but you are feeding her, you are treating her with everything that you have done, with the exception of having conjugal rights. The moment you touch her and you have that moment of a few seconds, the divorce is null and void. Sheikh Ashraf, let me bring you here so that I don't actually preempt your aspect on that. So that we bring in this interesting conversation. It would be interesting to hear from the biblical, the Christian perspective from Pastor Noel. What happens during that period? Sheikh Ashraf, I think I've tampered into your territory, but I think I wasn't wrong saying that period of, the waiting period and exactly what happens if someone by accident touches, the divorce is null and void.
I mean, thank you, Sheikh Chris. I mean, you've said it all. I was just admiring the spirit of the law, and when counsel said that the law tries to make it really hard, and that is when we look into the procedure. Procedures are meant to be a little bit tough to make people find other alternatives, but basically here in the from the Islamic perspective, Sheikh Kassim, you cannot divorce a woman when she's in her cycle, when she's in her period.
If she's in her period, divorce can't
yeah, it is not acceptable that you do that. And also, if you are to divorce, you need to divorce her after her period, and during that time, you must not have touched her. so it is that tricky.
So it's not like having a relationship, having conjugal relationship, making love at night in the morning, then you say I've divorced you. That
can't happen. And also there is something interesting here, that when you divorce her, then she stays in your house for the first time, and there is a way the Islam encourages her to be so enticing. she does all these tricks and whatever to make you
wearing the towel and walking to the bathroom,
and doing all these things so she can probably win you over again, and then that's it. That's divorce is done here. So there, it is
that is assuming that you are the one who has divorced her. What if it's the problem?
I was actually coming to that.
My apologies.
I mean, you know, there is in Islam it is I would say in English we could say separation, because in Islam we have like almost 5 ways to separate. So this is when a man is divorcing, it is called talaq. So we are talking in terms of a man being the one divorcing. There is whole where a woman is the one divorcing, and the laws are different here. So there is nothing like a woman has divorced you and you start moving around in your towel. That's it. So the rules are different a little bit here. And of course, when it comes to a separation, which is called fasq, this is when you agreed upon something and then one of you is going against that thing you agreed upon, and then you just have to separate. Then it has separate rules. But all in all, Sheikh Kassim, a divorce is made tough to happen.
Fantastic.
As well. Just like Council said, that the law makes it really hard for us to separate.
All right, Pastor Noel, welcome back, and apologies. I mean, you've waited in the box for long, but as you can hear, the conversation now is sort of widening out. You've heard from Council Francis. You've also heard from Sheikh Ashraf. What would be the Christian aspect now that divorce is activated? What happens?
Yes, I've heard quite a few things around. That's really informative for me, because although I have taken the time to read a good chunk of the Quran, there's quite a lot that I am learning as we go along. From the biblical perspective, it's important to sort of go back to what we were talking about before, the serious difference between the contract and covenant. Now, in the Bible, marriage is a covenant, not a contract. In other words, the contract is something that has a time limit to it. A contract has a starting point and an end point. A covenant doesn't. It has a starting point, but there is not a definite end point to it. So the biblical perspective does not see a marriage as something that can end.
Better.
I think there is someone bleeding through. Asfa, if you can help, just mute. Okay, go ahead, Pastor.
So I'm saying that biblically, the Bible does not see marriage as something that has a sort of expiry date, sort of contract, so to speak. That part is not there. So the focus will be solely on reparation and ensuring that the two stays together. This is not to deny that there are cases where divorce takes place, but this is mostly to encourage and teach about the staying together. And that's really the main difference. Now, you could look at the case of the legal aspect of the 5 years or 3 years, as the council was suggesting, biblically speaking, there is none of those reasons that are valid for divorce. All of this, the time frame, the fact that people are going through sort of separation, a person is abroad, another one is in a different country, 5 years, 10 should not be a problem, should not be a reason for divorce. And everything can be sort of, there's always room for reconciliation from a Christian perspective. There is something that really is crucial in the Christian message, is that of forgiveness, that aspect of forgiveness. That means that in a way, there's reconciliation is something that can always work around. And that's something that needs to sort of be discussed, as I said, prior to the marriage, way before the two enter into that, knowing they go into a covenant. So no prenups, no arrangement and checking any of this stuff. Now, can I just check, because you asked me earlier something about where does it go wrong? Have we failed?
As religious leaders, yes.
As religious leaders. Now, there's something I want to really talk about that we tend to sort of, as religious leaders, personally as a pastor, that I've learned on as I went along, that is a serious problem. And it has been mentioned by a number of people in terms of a serious issue in marriage, is that of men being, or women being bad in bed. That is a serious problem in marriage. But that is an easily treated problem through counseling, through preparation and teaching. So one of the aspects that the church, I don't know about, but I think the religious leaders in general, is that we don't talk about sex. We don't talk about teaching in that aspect to ensure that these issues around it are sort of
taboo. Are they taboo?
Well discussed and well versed, and this is not a taboo. Most people will hear, young people will hear about sex or learn about sex in pornographic and from their mates, and that way rather than at home. And to hear a conversation of intimate conversation between generations is something unheard of. And this will deal with a lot of these problems. And in my view, one aspect that, as I was saying earlier, is that we need to be a little bit more open in talking about these things. So 2 things for me. First, the covenant part, as opposed to contract. Secondly, this idea of not having anything taboo and talking about it. It's easy, you often for men, that I talk to my friends about how good or bad so-and-so is in bed, that I talk about it with my wife or discuss it as such. So that's really an issue as far as I'm concerned.
So, Pastor, there's something I've not understood. Are you saying that, because you say the issue of sex being bad in bed, is something that you would think can be dealt with in counseling? What if someone is weak, they are weak? Is there something that can actually be changed in terms of that? And
absolutely, there's no such a thing as somebody who's being weak. It's because really, if we talk about it from a simple perspective, the biggest sex organ is in the brain. It's not the part in between. It's just the brain. And education about it, preparation, is really more important than the actual act. And many of the issues that we have in bed are related on the fact that most of the people in the church, because that's what I know, are not necessarily educated to understanding how sex works. And what it is that you're expecting is not necessarily what marriages offer. It's what pornographic images have offered. And that's unrealistic expectation from your partner. So these are things that need to be talked about, and remove these taboos and remove these crazy expectations of what sex should be, and go into it with a more clear understanding.
Someone is asking you, Pastor, in the chat room, they are saying, how about impotence? Because you said with takes it.
Well, impotence doesn't happen during marriage unless there has been some serious issues. It should happen. If it has happened beforehand, then it should have been known. And as I said, preparation would have dealt with that beforehand. If it happens in a marriage during marriage, then there may have been causes that could be sort of helped to solve it. It will be sort of, I can't really see what he means. That does it mean has it happened before, or does it all of a sudden happen during marriage?
From a religious perspective, you are not supposed to be with the person before you actually get married officially. So the idea of impotence, you might not actually get to know that through the discussions and studies in the mosque or in the church. Ultimately, until you are with this person, that's where this issue might come up. When it arises, would that be grounds adequate enough to constitute an issue of divorce?
I see what you mean. You mean a man is impotent and is hiding it from the wife?
Well, probably not even hiding it, but probably they didn't. Well, you want to get married. There's peer pressure, there's social pressure. You've got the money, you've worked your way up, and you get the money. You want to get married, but in coming there, you are not honest about it. Or probably because you've never had sex before marriage, you didn't know that that is the case until you get there. Because at least from an Islamic perspective, and I know even in a Christian perspective, it should be that you should not have, sort of conjugal relations before you get married.
But
so if you're getting married, and that's where you find it.
Impotence and sexual relationships are two different things, because impotence is simply the ability to get ready for sexual relationships, but it does not mean having sexual relationships. And every parent, from the time your child is 1 or 2, you see your boy. So it's impossible. In my understanding, I can't see a man who's impotent, and by the time they get married, they don't realize. So biologically speaking, there's a problem right there. There's a problem of truth and honesty as far as the man is concerned. There's no person who would go into marriage not realizing that they were impotent. So that may be a completely different question.
we got derailed a little bit. So first, I'm coming back to you on the question of process. How, now that we know, we found ourselves in this particular situation. We've tried the counseling. You've said even the mediation is a continuous process while the divorce proceedings are going on. But it is clear, probably, like this, someone wakes up and says, just like I fell in love with you, I've fallen out of love with you. In Luganda, there's even, there's a way that they make the oath. The implication of that is too heavy on the person. It means there are these irreconcilable differences, and we now have to deal with it. From a Christian perspective, how are you handling divorce while we prepare to get back to counsel now to look at the nitty-gritties of that?
Right, okay. So talking about the nitty-gritty aspect of it now, again, I can't really avoid that aspect of preparation. When you are preparing people to get married, it's really important to understand what love is from a starting point. Love is not a feeling that a man just has towards a woman. That is the natural flesh love that you call possibly that physical attraction aspect of love. But love cannot be just limited to that, because the person you're just referring to is saying to sleep with you is just I'm sleeping in the same body as my mom. But in a way, that person has got a certain affection towards their mom, which is not the physical attraction, but erotic attraction, but the friendship aspect or the respect towards mom. There is a third type of love that the Bible talks about. It's the love that we have towards God, which is the agape love. So first and foremost, to confine love, that is marital love, into one aspect, which is just that of erotic love, is dangerous. Because really, the eros, that aspect of love, which is just a physical attraction, changes over time. It will change in a sense that it grows with you. You would have, at the age of 20, be attracted possibly by the form of their physical appearance, which will change once they've gone through the process of having children and all of that. So it's really the danger is limiting love to one aspect. So from a Christian perspective, love is not just limited in that aspect. Love, first and foremost, is a global thing. First is love between man from God, Unless you have the love of God inside of you, you have really very little love to give, except that eros. So preparation from a Christian perspective is first and foremost having in the heart the love of God, because I can only give what I've got.
Now,
and I cannot always count on the
I'll tell you this. I've been through the preparation and of weddings, and you get to wedding ceremonies. The last thing that the lovebirds want is the speech from the priests. You know, be it a sheikh, be it a pastor. The last thing they want is to rush and go to their bed. So on wedding days, you see the way they start nagging the priest. You know, the person starts talking, they can't stop talking. And the husband and wife want to rush to their beds as soon as possible. So you find that a lot of the messages that the religious leaders put across around that time, which is critical as they go to embark on their new life, is missed as a message. So when you say the kind of preparation that goes in here is quite critical, you find that sometimes we might have missed on that. So I'll just ask this briefly so that again now we can sort of bring in more people into the conversation.
Yeah.
The question is now, we are already in the process of divorce. How does the church help a person that is going through divorce? There's a lot of trauma that is involved. People go through depression, be it men, be it women. In the process of that divorce, which has already been activated, how does the church help the person?
Kassim, again, you're taking me to the beginning of preparation on the day when I delivered the sermon on the wedding. It's not the case. I was saying that teachings had to start much earlier before that lovebird starts.
Perfectly agreed. Now,
now let's just come back to this idea that some sort of differences have occurred. So how do we sort of deal with this aspect? There are two ways. First and foremost, people are always going to tell you that we are in a position where it cannot possibly come back together. But this needs to be unpacked. You need to unpack this. You need to just go to the reasons why. Okay, I cannot accept when people just tell me, oh, it's irreconcilable. I cannot just take that. You go to the reasons why. You need to go to the bottom of it and understand the source of this problem. Now, take the time. There is no rush. Remember, for me, marriage is a covenant. So we are going to say, let's take the time. I understand where you stand. We understand where you are at the moment. I'm not going to force you into anything. At the end of the day, you're an adult person. You're going to make your decision. So let's just take the time to unpack what the problem is. Now, usually, if they're a member of a church, it's difficult that you get to that point having not noticed any issue. So you have been with them on that journey. So you unpack the problem, you get to know the root of the issue, and then you are able to see if you can deal with it or not. So that's really the proceedings, that's really the process. There is no such a thing as a period of time, 3 months or 6 months or so. You are going to really take the time needed to get to the bottom of it. With the hope, which is always what I start telling them, I really have great hope that this can be brought together. I never lose that message.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Pastor. And I think it sort of puts it into perspective, because I was trying to drive towards that because we've seen the Islamic way where there's this 3 months period. If you touch, then it's gone. There's a process, then you have to feed the person, you have to look after the person continuously as if you are, still married until that period, the 3 months elapses. If it elapses and you are not, in the mood to have the person, then they can move out of the house. Council Francis, I'm coming back to you, and then I'll open up the conversation to our people in the audience here. Now we've gone through the process. You've started the proceedings now. Everybody's looking red. Do you ever get to speak to the other side? Because now you're either representing the woman or you're representing the man. Do you get to speak to the other side?
I don't speak to the other side because as a lawyer, I'm only representing my client, and what my client wants, that's what my client gets. So it's basically, I would only be speaking to the other side, but putting forward my client's views, what they want and what their position is, and to see if probably they can come to a middle ground and agree on certain things. But I think going back to what I just want to pick on something small one thing which I've noticed, I'm not looking down at all on the religious perspective at all, but I just want them to also to be realistic, that in the world we are dealing with people who are not Christians, who are not Muslims, who are not religious at all, and these are also our clients. And as much as you get the benefit of at least only meeting people who come for advice and counseling from your perspective, for us, we get people who don't even share the same views or background or beliefs, and we've got to act in their best interest. And I think this is where the law comes in. So to them, that's why the law is that there will be people who don't believe in religion, and it gives them a way out of this marriage. Although difficult, it doesn't basically bind them into a marriage when they don't want to be into it. But in terms of the law itself, it looks at the consequences. And I think as a lawyer, this is where many people need to understand what is going to happen when actually somebody gets divorced, or what is going to happen to the financial matters, what's going to happen to the children. And I know somebody in the audience asked that question, which I'm going to touch on, because these are also the consequences of the divorce, the divorce, such that, when the people from the religious background, sheikhs and priests and pastors, they also need to bring this into such that people are aware, because usually our religious leaders are the first people to encounter these problems. And I would actually encourage, if they do work hand in hand with lawyers at the same time, to give them such that they can be able to provide this information at the same time. Because if people know exactly what is going to happen, they will think absolutely twice before they get into it. Some of the things which they know, for instance, the divorce has happened, people are not able to get together. There are things the law talks about. You might be thinking, oh no, it's done, I'm gone, and all that kind of stuff. No, it doesn't stop there. The law could put an obligation, for instance, of you making periodical payments to your wife, to your ex-wife, and you'll be like, well, I thought I divorced, why am I paying? Yes, you've got to continue maintaining a standard of living, which probably, if she had a car, she had a house, she had wherever, you've got children. Even though you've gone out, you've got to continue maintaining them at that standard of life which they had. If they were spending 15 million, you've got to keep it, and they are going to assess your income. And I think these are things which people don't look at it.
Counsel, is that regardless of who has the money? It might be that the wife is the one who has more money.
No,
I think husband or what?
Usually, no, it doesn't. I think it's not only the man. If the wife is the one who was more wealthy, who was looking after so they are going to look at both of your income. And then it's going to be, and that is a myth which some women think, that when they divorce, they're not going to pay anything towards the man's maintenance and everything. You see what I mean? They think that, oh, I've divorced him, he's actually the one who is going to do it. Because in society, we see that probably men earn more money than women, and that is why they think men are the one who actually keep on making these payments, the lump sum, the sharing of the property, whereby properties, the court can make an order for the property which is in your name, Kassim, and it is being transferred in my name as your ex-wife, and you'll be like, I worked for that property, she was only staying at home and looking after the kids, and you will end up losing. So I think people need to look at, even if you don't want to transfer that, they can even put there the order to sell the assets, the family assets. And these are the things which people need to think about, that there are going to be consequences of financially, even going to your pension, there will be an attachment to your pension. You've divorced me 15 years ago, and I'm still entitled to some of the money, which, as part of your pension. It's like you might be, I can't hear you.
That's so unfair. Why that?
Well, again, these are, according to the Matrimonial Causes Act here, there are certain factors which they look at, the judge will look at in order to make these orders. Okay, obviously they'll look at my life, it might be, maybe there is a disability, maybe I'm not married again, you found me when I was really young, and now you've basically, instead of me going to work or develop my career, I've dedicated it to raising the children. I've got nothing. And then you've got a big pension pot and I'm missing out because you've divorced me. There are all these things which the court is going to look at. So some people divorce thinking it's just going to end their petition, I'm now divorced. And then you go and marry another woman, or a man marries, and then they think, I'm out of the picture completely. Your new wife starts complaining. Why is the money still going to your ex-wife? What is going on here? So they can't understand that these things, there are consequences. Now, there is the issue of, it even becomes more complicated when we have children in the picture, because the children, their welfare are the paramount. Their welfare becomes first. The court will now look at who needs to look at their children. The court would want to see that the lives of the children do not change. They will look at what is in the best interest of the children. So some men think, the children automatically go to the wife, but that is not true. They're going to look at what is going to give the children the most stability. I've had clients who are men who have ended up having the kids and not their wives, because the wives have not always been there at home. They don't know anything about the children's education. They're not that involved. They are far from the school and everything. And the children end up staying with a man. So it's not really a rule that it's the wife who always takes the kids. And it's kind of like a myth. And some men sometimes don't take it to court, like to make an application, thinking that it is going to be automatically in a woman's favor. Mm-hmm. So I think that it goes to the question which the other gentleman was talking about. You might find out that if he makes an application to court, the judge might change it, because as far as the court is concerned, the children need to know their father and their mother at the same time. These relations are very important in their lives, but that is the starting point, unless something wrong has happened. So it's not automatic that the woman will always have the children.
Now the council, very fantastic issues that I can see actually as well. You can see what is happening in the chat room, because quite often people have heated, the debate has gone very personal now. It's people having conversation around that. I see a hand that is up from Amina Amba. I think we should give her a chance. In the meantime, Isma in the studio, please prepare that clip, because council has touched on the issue of the impact on children, because quite often as we're having husband fighting wife, there are these absent or silent or invisible victims who are struggling, who are suffering, taking both the emotional aspects. Council, before you go away, I think there is a question from Amba or a point. Let's hear what she has to say. Amina Amba, please go ahead. Council is listening, and the Sheikh and priests are listening.
Thank you so much, Sheikh. I don't know if I've missed a point, but I wanted to ask the council if in the Britain there is a law which would force some fathers who don't want to be involved in the kids' lives to be there. Like some cases which I've seen in the States, where fathers have to really take care of their kids, even if they are not, like they don't live with them. And the second one, which I wanted to ask as well, the partnership. Do we have a choice in Britain to basically have a fiance rather than a husband?
Because I'm seeing, because in the UK, I've also seen something that so probably you can touch on that as you're answering, which is living together as if you are married, as if married. I always see that, and I find that as a line that would want to take someone into a tricky situation.
Yeah, a partnership. Yeah,
yes. Thank you very much.
So
I mean, Council, I think you've taken note of that. Let's take the question as well from Uma Connect. I can see there, so that we take the two questions. There might be questions that actually even go to the to our religious leaders to help touch into that. Yes, Uma Connect.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. That is Hafsa in the United States. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. My question is for counsel because did she say she practices in Uganda as well?
She does practice in Uganda, yes.
Okay. I have a question about someone who's been legally married in Uganda, and then the couple separate, and then a man does a traditional ceremony, Nyanjula. Now, in case anything happens to the husband, to the man, who is legally responsible for anything to do with the man? In case of properties, his estate, whatever, would it be the woman who he legally married in church or the one who he traditionally married?
Is he still married to both? Probably just that is just for clarity. Is he still married to both? Because it sounded like they divorced. Because if they did divorce, then why would they have access to that?
Okay, not necessarily say they do the divorce. Now, omukazi agende bananoba. Yes, nebawukana. Then omusajja n'ayanjula omukyala omulala. So my question is, because in Uganda they say, oli yali w'empeta, especially in the Christian faith. They say, oli yali mukyala w'empeta n'olwekyo ye mukyala gwe tumanyi. And while
and that is for our other language speakers, especially in Rwanda. I would just translate. I would just interpret very quickly so that we still stay on the ball. Traditionally, you'll understand that for people who get married, for example, in Uganda, traditionally, in Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, the story is different because in Uganda we have that traditional marriage which is considered official. In Rwanda, you have to go to the commune or in Burundi and even Congo. But in the case of Uganda, abamo uko umuntu agenda agashaka akaba yashatse ariko atangiye yarasabye gusa bisanzwe, that is traditionally, without necessarily going to the church or to the mosque. And then there is the marriage that goes to the mosque, yakomine, which again now is formalized. In this particular case that Hafsa is talking about, is a situation where something happens to the man. I think you're talking about his dying, where now there's access to property. Which one would have the priority? The church married or the traditionally married? Counsel to you now.
Okay. Thank you for those questions. I'll start with the last question and then I go backwards. The question whereby you say the Ugandan case. According to the Ugandan law, if you can't marry twice. You have to first divorce before you marry again. If the man did not divorce the first wife, then it's actually a criminal offense to go and remarry. Uganda has got two different marriages, obviously. The customary marriage, it is acknowledged as marriage. However, the customary marriage, which they call Okwanjula, the customary marriage, it needs to be registered. I know many people who end up saying Bayanjude, and that is a customary marriage. It needs to be registered. You need to ensure that actually that marriage has been registered. You've not just stopped Kumukolo Beskal and say, that's the wedding, Banyanjud, and therefore this is a wedding. There is a process which people do forget to complete, and that is so important. So obviously, in this particular scenario which the lady has given, if the man was married and did not divorce and ends up to Kwanjura, which is a customary marriage, that marriage is not valid. It is the first marriage which is valid. Okay, and actually it's a criminal offense. If it's found that he went ahead and did a customary marriage and ended up registering it, that is a criminal offense. That is not a valid marriage.
Now, Counsel, how about the Muslims? Because now Muslims are allowed to marry up to 4 wives, and in Uganda it has been recognized that way. That's the Muslim. If the person is Muslim, obviously that is allowed. They can have 4 wives. I don't know. I don't want to be quoted here. I don't understand, but I know that is I know that is allowed, and that is allowed, and that is again fine. But I'm just talking from a perspective of like the person is being married in church or is being married at the registrar.
and that marriage is got to be a monogamous marriage, and that's how it is. Any subsequent marriage is not valid, and therefore the first wife or the first one is the wife, even though they're not staying together, unless they have been divorced, and therefore has got rights to each and everything, consenting to the property or anything. She is the wife. Wow. So the next one was about the other lady who talked about the law here in the UK, whether when people are staying as partners, they are not married, whether it is allowed here. Yes, it is. There is what we call cohabiting. And people can actually cohabit, and they are not married, but they are cohabiting. They're living as partners. They're having children. And also the law here gives them a lot of rights at the same time. In fact, not as married people, but very close. For instance, if the person has been staying with you, you've got children and they are cohabiting, they have rights to your property at the same time. So there is a certain procedure. If you want to say, like, now we are separating and all that kind of stuff, I'm leaving these children, I don't want anything to do with them, they do have cohabitation rights. That is a different, level at the same time. So those people who think, I'm not going to get married because I don't want to be convoluted into this, I'll simply cohabit, we have children, and I walk out of it, I'm sorry, the law can pin you down on that at the same time, including touching some of your property at the same time, depending on the duration which you have stayed with that particular person and the impact and the contribution that person has made on your assets at the same time. You see, someone can come into your house, you're cohabiting, and say, okay, I can give you £10,000 to renovate your property and all that. They have already got an equitable interest into your asset. You've allowed them to do that. So think about it very carefully.
So should we refuse? Should we refuse when they offer that? Is that your advice?
Well, my advice is this is in a relationship, especially when you're living as a couple, especially when it has got children involved, take it seriously. So, because I think the law in Uganda has not moved so much onto the cohabiting rights. They haven't moved it, they haven't developed it. It's, it's like if you're cohabiting, really doesn't take that much as if you're a wife, unless Bakwanjura or you are married. Mm-hmm. So that's the Ugandan law. You come to the UK, it is different here. Cohabiting partners have got rights, and children from that relationship have got rights. You will not walk away and leave them with nothing. There is a point also the lady mentioned about whether somebody can be forced to look after their children. Yes, they will be if these are their children. They are on the birth certificate, and whereby so they even we have the children support services. There will be forced pay maintenance towards these children. So you can actually apply and make them. There are certain orders, like specific issue orders, whereby they can be forced to do certain things. Obviously, the court will grant orders in relation to the children, looking at what is in their best interest, if it is not harm them. If they can see that this man being in the children's life is causing them emotional harm, physical harm, and all that kind of stuff, however much you want it to, they're going to do what they call a balancing exercise. But financially, they'll make him pay. Or they'll make her pay if the woman is the one who left the children with the man. So she will be responsible, she will be forced. So that applies here at the same time. I don't know if I've answered all your questions.
Yes, you have fantastically well. Thank you very much, Council. I think let's just take this quick little look at the children, and then we'll come to wrap up tonight. Looks like a conversation that we were hoping we could actually go deep, but I'm sure Council now and the religious leaders have really taken us to a different level altogether, because now we are touching on issues that we don't normally talk about. The chat room has been busy with the personal aspects, which is what should have come out here, but at least we've got the benefit of seeing the fact that now we can take that. I can see a hand from Isa Makumbi. Isa, let's take this question quickly, and then I'll come to Bwana Isma. Let's have those two clips back to back on the impact of children, and then we'll start wrapping up so that we don't keep people so long, especially people who are in Uganda now where it's very, very late. And Hajat Zaitun, I'll be coming to you as well, just in terms of the counseling aspect as we wrap up towards the end. So please stay there. Issa Makumbi, I'll take your question very quickly and then we'll just watch this clip. Isma, if you don't mind, please let's just hold on for Issa Makumbi. Let's just take his point and then we will watch the clip. Issa Makumbi, go ahead, please. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, engineer. Can you hear us? And Hasfan Ampe was saying this session has really been very beneficial. Thank you very much to the organizers. Welcome. Thank you very much. Issa Makumbi, have you been able to unmute yourself, please? If you can unmute yourself, Issa. Engineer, are you there? Okay, Isma, if we can play the clip while Issa gets ready. Let's have that clip because the impact mainly is always on the children. And that's why I think now we need to be looking, trying to see how these children can actually be helped and supported in the circumstances that they are in. Sheikh Ashraf, I know you are there, very late in Uganda. Pastor Noel, I know you are also there. We'll be coming so that we can start wrapping up. I think the conversation gets better as it gets deeper and towards the end. If I'm right with that. Yes, please, let's have that clip on the impact on children and then we'll come to Issa.
When parents get on well together, their children do better. But we know it can be hard for couples to keep their relationships happy and healthy. Around 1 in 5 married or cohabiting couples are in relationships classified as distressed. That means they argue a lot, regularly consider separating, or regret being in their relationship. Conflict between parents can be easily triggered, often by common things that upset normal daily life. This can be problems with money or at work or because of ill health. And around half of all couples say their relationships become strained after the arrival of a new baby. But it can be easy to forget that when relationships are strained, it is children who suffer the most. Children exposed to frequent conflict are at greater risk of depression and anxiety and are more prone to problems with their physical health. They're also more likely to develop behaviour problems and to do worse at school. And this can have a knock-on effect later in life on an adult's relationships, employment, and their psychological well-being. And that's quite apart from the cost to society. Family breakdown has been estimated to account for £47 billion worth of public spending every year. But this is a problem we have the means to address.
If we can have that second clip, please, Isma. Isma, if we can have that clip, please. Just wrap up so that we can.
Hello.
Yes. Hello, Isma, are you there?
Yes,
Isma, if we can have that last clip. Yes, please, if we can have that clip and then we'll come to Issa Makumbi. Let's have back to back so that we can go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. But Issa, we are just playing a clip and then we'll come to you. I think the connection was probably. Yes, please.
All right.
Bear with us 1 second. Just please.
Dear Mom and Dad, I know that you are hurting. I'm hurting too. I feel and feed off your tension, fear, and shock. Although I am young and cannot express verbally what is happening in our lives, I'm still feeling the impact. My heart is broken every time I have to give up a parent. My sense of security is lost. Please don't assume that I am resilient. Please don't assume that my life will be exactly as it was, and that I will continue to feel the same love from both of you. I am a human being just like you. My needs are just like yours. I need love, attention, nurturing, stability, consistency, affection, understanding, patience, and mostly to be wanted. When you fight over me or put me in the middle of your argument, you are sending me the message that winning with each other is more important than my life. I am learning from you that it is better to be right than to be loved. You are teaching me that I came from a person who is unlovable and wrong, and that I am somehow wrong too. When you confide your hurt in my heart, you are storing up adult pain and robbing me of my childhood. You are taking away my belief that love is unconditional and replacing it with a message that tells me to become hard, not to love because I will get hurt and not be able to recover. You may not understand this today, and I am so small that you are not thinking about my future, but you are putting me at a greater risk of getting a divorce myself. At times, you are risking my safety to fill a void in your heart. My safety is your job. Without you and your protection, I am unshielded from the world. This will manifest in irrational fears for me because I will stay in a state of fight or flight for most of my life. Someday, this initial shock will wear off, but how you choose to parent me through this crisis will never wear off. I will either feel your sense of selflessness, support, protection, or I'll have a scar on my heart with a message that reads, "Good things happen to good people. It must be bad." Thoughtfully, the child of divorce.
Oh dear. Well, these are words that are coming from a child in the midst of a divorce process. Very painful. I'm sure anyone who is going through this particular moment in their lives, especially with children, we can only pray that God helps to take you through this very, very difficult, but sometimes necessary process that you have to go through the fire, walk through the fire, to come out of, especially, for example, there is emotional or physical abuse. It is just unbelievable what people have to go through, to live their lives. And just Issa Makumbi, now I'll just bring you in so that we wrap up, and then I'll go to Sheikh Ashraf Mutagubia because it's very late in Kampala. We'll let him go off the back of that, and then we shall now wrap up with Pastor Noel and Council Francis. And if there are any hands, if you feel touched by whatever has happened or transpired in tonight's program, you can just put up your hand and we'll be able to listen to you. Sasha Pivan, is it Pivan or Pivoine? Pivan? I'll come to you as well. Let's first take Issa Makumbi and then we'll go to Sasha.
Salam, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam.
It was a very interesting debate.
Yes, thank you.
Which people take so lightly that you just marry and then next day you just walk out of the divorce, out of the marriage. It's not easy and it's very expensive.
Not according to Council Francis.
They make it so low, roses so easy, but it's very, very expensive. And you regret the day you divorce. It's a long process and very expensive. You can't just work it out. The maintenance costs will drain you for the rest of your life. You will come to hate your wife, at times hate your children. You think that they're draining your pocket. And the second marriage will be destabilized as well. So before anybody think about divorce, you better think about the implications. I've seen people, my friends who have gone through the process, and the way they are suffering is unbearable. The life they are leading is very awful. And when it comes to divorce, you don't know that next year you're getting old. Mostly you end up lonely, nobody trust, and nobody to help you when you're getting old. So in a marriage, you get children as well. They are affected physically, mentally, and academically. Very few can really make it. So the council has been talking so much about Uganda. Uganda, at the time of the law, customary and cohabiting has become almost like the British law, whereby you get involved in, you pay heavily. When it comes to divorce, you're bound, especially men, you're bound to lose 2/3 of your wealth. Property, you might be kicked out. Because if the family is too young, the priority goes to the children. And the children most likely side with their mom and be evicted. Maintaining that house, you have to pay the mortgage as well, plus the maintenance costs. So if you are thinking about divorce, the implications are very heavy.
Well, Issa, you are talking about if you are thinking about divorce, but even thinking about marriage now, I think will be something.
No, the thing is, for us,
yes.
For me, I've been married for 40 years. I've got enough experience. These two people come together, you have to move in the middle. You have to be a bit realistic that two people have grown up from different homes and background, come to live in one house. You just have to balance the two.
Thank you
and
very much.
in between.
Thank you very, very much, Isa Makubi. I can see so many hands. And like I said, as the program is wrapping up, that's when you start seeing so many people coming up with things that have.
So if we're going, the implications are high.
Fantastic. Thank you
So
very much.
Okay.
I know it's almost 1 o'clock in Uganda at the moment. Thank you very much for staying up late for us. I'll take Sasha quickly, and then I'll go to Sheikh Ashraf, who we need to release as well. Sasha, go ahead, please. Hi, Sasha. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. You know what? To be honest, I'm not gonna mention someone who put to me on this line today, but it was, you know, when you go to just use someone, but it use someone for reason. It's really hard work. Can you hear me, or
we
you
can
can't
hear you
me?
fantastically well? Yeah.
Okay, but when I joined the meeting today, I want to talk to someone, and anyway, they're really like people I'm talking about. But you see, when I see this video, this little boy, and anyway, you see little boy or it's a little girl, it's not about us. Sometimes it's not about what we're going through as separate or even family. It's about the kids, because they always become a victim. And we always forget about their feelings, you know what I mean? But what I'm trying to say, I believe in God. I believe whatever we do, like how everybody been trying to say it. If you read it, the men can hurt you, women can hurt you, but please, brother and sister, don't use the kids against the father or against the mother, because guess what? You never gonna take that pen from the kids. But if we believe in God, and somehow we heal you and we heal that person. It's not the person who's doing that. It's the devil. That's what I can say. But they always the victim. They're the kids. Money comes and goes. You can have all. You can have it today. But it's about, oh, I have this. You've got this one. Nobody even knows what I'm going through. I need to pay the men who didn't even support me when I was going through whatever. But guess what? I told judge, let him take whatever he want. Because at the end of the day, as long God giving me oxygen, he'll be able to provide it for me. Even anything. Let's try to say, this is material. It's about our kids. It's about our kids. Really, that I should say anything, but when I see this video, I'm sorry, because I really had my ex because he used my kids against me.
Is he living with the kids at the moment? Is he taking
No. But
you are with the
what
kids?
happened? It's not even about that. But I swear to God, I don't know wherever who's there, but I'm really putting that as my testimony.
Yes.
Just let God will show the truth. I fight for myself, it didn't win. But when God showed the true story, we show true story.
How are you coping with that, Sasha?
I'm okay. But you see, yeah, I'm really okay.
Have you managed to move on? Have you managed to build up a new relationship?
I'm okay. I'm really okay. I've got my father who supports me. Is my father who keep me living in the house. It's my mortgage. But guess what? That man who didn't even pay the bill when I was ill, he said like he pay everything for me.
Right.
I'm very ill. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very ill. But even whatever happened, guys, don't have the kids. Don't have the women, don't have the men who really support you. Especially the kids, they are victims. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm saying this. It's because I pray for it because before I came online, because someone who's online, they know when I found them. And I said, I want to be born again. I'm not going to lie. He knows. Papa, you know who I'm talking about. He knows who I'm talking about. But the things, what really happened me, it's about we went through as Black people, women on men. What you fight for? Nothing. The good example, it's about mother and the father. I was married for a long time. My husband was my best friend.
How long were you married for?
12 years. And my husband was my best friend. He was my best friend. And I will respect him till when I die. You know why? Because I choose him over my family. It was not him, it's the devil. But I didn't know that till when I start to see the reality. I'm not preaching it to anybody. I'm saying my testimony because it damaged my kids.
How are the kids coping then? Because when you say the kids have been damaged and he tried to tarnish your image before the kids.
God is looking after them. But when already you start having a bit, like you start having a anger, oh, I would do this, I would do this. Maybe if I do this, he'll go back to me. I would do this, like, or whatever. But the problem, devil is a liar. I got him. And then it was another story. Then it was another, and I'm not gonna talk a lot, but what I'm trying to say, brother and sister, please, material things is nothing. As long God give you oxygen, but be there for the kids, because do you know one day, the way that the video we just saw, the kids, their kids, they can't choose to love that or no love that, whatever. You know, like God said, who you are, He forgive you, whatever who you are. You only have one dad, only have one mom.
Thank you very much, Sasha. And you said, like you said, you won't say much, but I think you've said a lot. If anything, if anyone is listening in,
to
I'm
forgive and ask for. To be honest, I will never say it was easy to forgive, but I forgive, and I hope people as well I had in that journey they will forgive me. But please, guys, the kids are innocent.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, Ida, you are next. Ida. Ida. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine.
Okay. You've just been listening to this conversation now. Your own take. Question?
Yeah, I've been listening to the conversation, but it's so sad, you know. I'm not going to say much, but I have a friend of mine. He was with someone, basically they got married. And this person married the girl for some reasons. He had his intentions to marry the girl.
Papers or?
Pardon?
Papers were they, you know, sometimes it's about marriage of convenience in terms of getting papers.
I don't know what went wrong, but I had some reasons because they separated when this the girl was expecting and he left. But when she had the baby, he tried to come back, but it was something different. He wanted something different from that. You know, like for instance here, some people, I don't know whether he wanted papers, but the story, what I had, that he had some reasons, his reasons to marry the girl. What I wanted to say, she had to put him into child support, but the guy had to change the job so that they cannot take money from him. Yeah, it's called, by that time it was called child support.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now I think they've changed the name. So he left his job because they were taking money from him. She had to report him. And now, because this girl or the lady doesn't want problems, he decided to leave the guy. But the child was asking, why my dad doesn't want to do this? Why my dad, why? So I was talking to my friend, you know what? If the guy doesn't want to look after the girl, leave him. And now the child, she doesn't care. She say, you know what? I don't mind if I don't have a father. But inside, she's hurting.
Yeah.
Because he's a liar, And mostly,
okay.
I feel sorry, some of our African men, I'm very sorry to say, Ugandan men, because I live in the Ugandan community. They need to stop that. When you have a child, be there for that child. Don't come on the graduation day and say, oh, this is my daughter, when you haven't even paid for the uniform. Che, you know how much the uniform cost here. But men, they just sit there. They can't even say, oh, you know what? Let me help my child. And you lie to the child. Oh, because we talk, we women, we talk. Especially when you have a close friend, we talk. So she lied to the child. He said, oh, I'm going to put some money in the account. And then the child will be excited, And then
the money never came.
Nothing, What do you think the child will think? He say, I don't want to talk to him. I feel sorry. I wish the council was on, because
council is still on, and she's going to come.
I'm still on.
She's here, and so if you have your question, just put the question. I think we have gone over.
So what can you do if the man changed the job?
To try to avoid taking responsibility.
Yes.
Council, you can take note of that, and then when we come, we shall be wrapping up. I think at that. Thank you very much, Aida, for that comment. Fantastic. But it starts getting very emotional as you get towards the end. Sharifa Twaha, your hand was up and then suddenly disappeared. I'll just bring you in quickly. Sharifa Twaha, please unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sharifa Twaha?
No, it's Baker. I was unmuted.
No, Sharifa. Hold on. Coming already. I saw you. I wanted to get Sharifa who wasn't coming. She had her hand up. And then I'll come to you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Sharifa. You had your hand up.
Sure, I was actually clapping for the person that was speaking previously.
It was for Sasha, yes. And Hajat Sarah Semakula has already done that to say, Sasha, you are so brave. Thank you very much for the strong message that you put across. Okay, I'll take it to Becca then. I thought you had a comment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Sheikh Kayira, I wanted to say something quick. I think people need to understand how serious this matter is. Actually, first of all, let me first talk about the Ugandan men thing. Please practice and not say Ugandan men, because this is leading to your children resenting the Ugandan community. If you continue saying Ugandan men, your children are going to resent the Ugandan community. That's why this statement is so dangerous. Please refrain from using it. I just wanted to say that. But to add on, last week we had a show where a lady came on, a young girl came on to discuss how girls are joining gangs. Girls are joining gangs because there's no love at home. There's no father love at home, and also the parents are busy at home. So both children need the love at home, and the only way they can get love at home is if they get the love of the both sides. Please, if you want a link to last week's show, you have daughters at home, but daughters are walking around with guns and knives in the house, but you don't suspect them. And they're being used and raped just because there's no love at home. It's a huge show. You need to watch the show to understand. If you want the link, I'll definitely give you the link to it. But please take in whatever's being said on this topic. It's a huge.
All right, Baker, thank you very much. I'll go to Naila Amida. Naila, oh, sorry, I actually asked you to unmute and then I muted you again. Please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi, Amida.
Thank you so much. This discussion is really powerful. I usually don't speak. I just come and watch and listen. But when it comes to children, then it's another place that I can't avoid. One thing I'm just gonna say, maybe, and from the leaders of the leaders that were speaking, the religious leaders, there is a question that you asked, and I thought you said, "Is it have the leaders of the religion failed?"
Yes.
And I think we need to understand that they play their part in preparing people, but the marriage is actually for two people. They are there to support us. They're there to kind of pray for us and support us. And from my opinion and my experience, let me say that anyway, it is that they support you, but the marriage is for two people. And one of the things, before I go on to the children, that hopefully, maybe I'll get to join next time again. Thank you for whoever invited me. Kassim, you should have invited me. You know me, and you didn't invite me either. But
my apologies. Now that you're here, we'll take it from there.
I think we need to understand that the beginning of the relationship is paramount. Some of us came to different countries, or you see this, you see a handsome boy, with six-pack, and you think that's it. You just go. The beginning of it sometimes is very dangerous. And that's where I agree with Pastor Noel that preparation is really important. Some of the divorces because of that lack of preparation and understanding what you're going into, because you've gone when you're young, you've gone without direction, with a lot of kibulis, like you don't want to hear from your parents. You've gone because you think you're in this love, but marriage is quite a big thing. It takes patience, it takes perseverance. It takes a lot of support, not only from family, from churches, from mosque, from the community. It becomes a community thing. It becomes like a community union. But what I would say is that it is the worst thing to do. I've gone through the divorce, and I don't wish it for anybody. It is the worst thing to do.
Was it hard for you?
Go through. Pardon?
Was it hard on you? Was it hard for you? Was it a difficult process?
We do that next time, Kassim. Should I just be professional yet?
No. The reason I'm asking that is like some divorces are mutual, so you agree.
I think for me, it was the hardest because, again, I don't believe. I think, Kassim, you know that, and people who know me, I don't believe in divorce. But that's why I said sometimes it's the best thing that you need to do for yourself. And for the children and for the other person as well. I agree with Sasha that sometimes we need to understand that no one in that union wants that. But sometimes the forces are so much that you can't manage them yourself. And despite the support, and trust me, the support from people is amazing. But then again, we need to be mindful that sometimes culture can pin you down into a relationship, and you stay in that relationship and it kills you. We've seen number of girls, Rwandan people, Ugandan girls. I work in a field where I see people killing themselves, because again, they've been pinned to stay in those relationships. Mine was the hardest thing to do, and I would never wish, if I had a chance to turn things around, and go back and reflect on it and in the impact it has, especially on the children, I would turn things around if I could. But things are not the easiest to turn around. So what I'm trying to say is the children, I was coming to the aspect of the children, is we need to be mindful that when we divorce as well, that the language, I respect the man who said avoid using Ugandan men, or Rwandan men or Burundian men.
Stereotyping.
I respect that, because I've got boys, and I think once we use language, I believe in the words that says that our mouth can create. Once you start using that Ugandan men or Rwandan men, or Burundian men, you need to remember that your child actually is that person, is a Ugandan man or a Rwandan man, and he will. So I really appreciate that somebody had to say that. And sorry, I'm a woman, but I still don't agree with such words. I think language is powerful, especially around the children. And again, the way we speak when we've gone through the divorce about our spouse or our partners, again, impacts that boy. Is a session that I did actually. I used that video for one of my session in work. Is the fact that parents, we don't realize when we say, oh, hey, I'm sorry to use these words, but women tend to use this word, this, he's that. I don't know so I don't know how to use bad language, so I try not to use it because but it's be careful, how you use the language around your partner or the son, the father of your child or the mother of your child. Children are not used as weapon. Please.
Now, I think actually next week, God willing, on Tuesday, we'll be looking post-divorce. And I think this element now in terms of how you deal with your own situations post that, how the children fit into this bigger picture will be very, very critical. And that's why we'll need to have this conversation coming in next week, which will be post-divorce. How do we move on? Thank you very much, Amida. I want to go to Uganda, get Sheikh Ashraf, let him leave because it's quite late. We'll just have his wrap up, and then I'll come to Zaitun, who is also in Uganda, and then wrap up with Pastor and Council, so that now we can have the fuller picture. But if in case you have something burning in your chest, like especially after listening to Sasha or listening to the boy who was writing the letter, there's definitely no bar, nothing that would bar you from sort of raising your hand, and then we'll wrap up with you. Sheikh Ashraf, sorry to keep you this late, and thank you very much for staying up. We'll just want to get your closing remarks, given where we have been now, looking at the process of divorce, from an Islamic perspective. What do you think should be the takeaway for our people here? I already see a hand from the United States as well, and Zaitun, you're still there. So Sheikh Ashraf, your sort of wrap up, your sort of closing remarks from tonight. What is the takeaway?
Thank you, Sheikh Kassim. I mean, it's really hard to say that you've kept me here. I've been enjoying staying here.
We've all been learning without a doubt.
Yeah, it's been, especially when you sit back and listen, you get to learn a lot of things. But you've tasked me to make closing remarks from my side. Sheikh Kassim and everyone who is listening in, I really believe these days, marriage was not actually about us who are getting into it. It was we were supposed to find it exciting so we can get lowered into it. But it was meant to serve a greater purpose. And I think we need to go back and look for the greater purpose. So marriage was about kids, the tomorrow of humanity. And that is something we should really care about as humans. We can't be a generation that is going to fail the next generations. So it was about the kids, it was about the tomorrow of humanity, the values. And I think you remember that word which is used in Uganda, Ntudde kurwa abaana. I think we made a joke out of our grandmothers and mothers. I'm staying here for the sake of the kids, if that's the right translation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it had a very deep understanding of what marriage was about and the impact. And I thank Council that she has really put out and laid down the consequences according to the law of divorce. But there are also, these are the consequences of losing the whole generation. And tomorrow you won't have a son to look after you, you won't have anything. I mean, we don't have a tomorrow as humans if we take marriage lightly and we start fighting right now. So these would be my concluding remarks for tonight. I believe marriage, yes, we have something in it, but it was not entirely about us. It was about something big. This is why I would implore everyone to go back to their religious tradition and ask and study what was it about anyway. And I think it all boils down to the kids and the tomorrow of humanity. I think if you don't look for the greater or bigger purpose and goal, the bigger reason as to why you should stay in marriage, you will definitely get out there and you won't look back. But if you bring all these meanings into your understanding, and then you have to reflect upon the purpose of this whole thing and your contribution to the existence of humans, you definitely will have some patience and forgiveness for yourself and for your partner.
Barakallahu fikum, Sheikh. Thank you very, very much. Very late in Kampala. And for everyone who is here, I can only thank you very much for having the time. We are still here. We're just about to wrap up. Sheikh Ashraf, thank you very much in Kampala. You can now probably go to bed in case you have to leave, but you can be assured that the wrapping up conversations are still very important. If you can, please stay on. Hajat Zaitun Kachama, please come on and let's have you wrapping up as well. I know it's very late. You stayed up as well. It's 2 a.m. So for the
and Sheikh, you're not in my husband's good books, my dear.
Well, he knows that we are trying to improve on what is happening to humanity, and I'm sure he's just lying next to you. So that should be all right. Yes, please go ahead. Hello. Oh, the network.
In conclusion, I Chancellor, as a marriage advocate, there's nothing that can replace marriage to an adult. Nothing, nothing, nothing. So let us all strive. Let us all do our best. Let us give it our all for our now, our tomorrow, and for our hereafter. Because what are we going to tell our children, really? That what did he do that you could not stand? I don't know. What did she do that you could not stand, so that you could be here for your children, so that you could be here for your duplication? I want to tell me and all of us that, like Sheikh has laid it down, there is a lot embedded in us being together. The two of us sticking together with all the differences and all the ugly things that we come with. There is a lot embedded in there. And you can only see it after a long while. You can only see it when your children finish school, and then you also start bringing in their mates, and then you also start seeing your grandchildren. That is probably when we shall see the real value of marriage. We cannot see it now. We just have to stick in there, and maybe we shall have something to present to our Creator that, oh Lord, I stayed with this beast for the sake of you. I stayed with this, with this woman because of my children. So let us be human. Let us not be like animals, and we shall see how we can get to the other generation. Thank you, Kassim, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Zaitun.
Thank you very much.
You can attend to Hajj now. Hajj, please, our sincere apologies.
He is long. He's away asleep. He's not even here at all. But assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Well, thank you very much. Said Katende in the United States, and then I'll come to our experts tonight. Said Katende, then Sharifa Twa, I see your hand is back up. Yes, Said Katende, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Sheikh Keke, for that powerful topic today.
Deja, we've had very good guests who have made it happen.
Absolutely. We thank you all. When the law became tough, there was no exit, and couples became violent to each other. In the end, the children became victims. They turned to hate love, and that's the generation probably we are seeing today. So what do we do? As married couples, we need to have self-reflection. Muganda kyagamba okwekuba mu torch oba okwekuba mu mutima. Preparation of our children for the institution of marriage requires us to be exemplary in the way we relate to marriage and anything around us in our homes or communities where we live. We therefore need a holistic approach in addressing marriage challenges, calling upon sheikhs, pastors, leaders in our communities, topical discussions like you're bringing it up today or in the last 2 weeks, mashallah. That way, when we begin to speak out, make it known and try to address the challenges of marriage, with time we shall be improving. And in this case, we must not lose hope. However, if it is all hell, please speak out. Speak out, let it out, because what you might call maybe a small issue might end up, disorganizing the entire community. Those are my observations or contributions for the show, and thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Said Katende, all the way in Virginia, in the United States. And this is your global community conversation. This is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. We are live on 75W Radio. We are live on Uma Connect, streaming live on YouTube, as well as on Zoom, where we are at now. Sharifa, you have the last word before we go back to our experts. I'll come to Pastor Noel after Sharifa, and then wrap up with counsel so that we can end the night. Sharifa, as you unmute yourself, I'll just read quickly a few messages which are actually almost busting the chat room. Julian says marriage only works if both parties are willing to put the work in. Please, women, don't suffer in silence, and that is from is it Habiba or Ribaba RRBA? A happier mom raises happier children. Laila Kandu says women don't stay because of children. Hey. Julian, can we be realistic? Should people stay together even when there is emotional and physical abuse? I repeat, don't stay for the sake of children. Okay, that's a conversation that is going on in the chat room, and as usual, we can always have people chat back and forth to each other in the chat room in case you are just shy to speak up. Sharifa Toha, you have the microphone. And the last one. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shay, may I have a question? There's a video I came across on social media. Let me actually use Uganda for this one because I was really touched. The video again around, it has over 1 million views actually. To an extent that I felt like I just want to talk about this or seek advice if anyone can help, because I need answers. Basically, this gentleman was talking about African women losing their cultural identity, especially when they travel abroad. Abachala banji, he said, abachala banji, but traveling anywhere jamuzinensi. Never sang in any small problem, they end up dragging their men to court. Any small problem, but dragging abami with makoti. Yes, or the police. The evidenti zinensi is running differently. Umuntu dragging into that system of which is going to later on affect you and the children. In this kind of situation, mentally, physically, everything. Because as a mother, it really affected me, and I just wanted to know what is the best way to go about all these hardships in marriage. Like how things used to go a long time ago, back in the days of our mothers. Not to kind of extent or to comparing to Asian ladies or Baba India, China, Omusanga China accent here buyindi nenga maze mu America emyaka egisuka mwasa to and above nayo omusanga ayogera lulimi lwabwe n'abaana be nga boogera lulimi lwabwe nefe. What is the problem? East African women, Nigerian, whatever, anywhere, African women in general, kubanga batwetise n'empuliranga nange ng'omuntu kinkutteko kubanga when you look at everything at a bigger picture, abaana b'abaddugavu basinga okubeera involved in criminal activities.
Yes.
Bebasingira ddala okuba lwaki maama akola kiro alina okukola kino alina okukola kita tataliiwo wamutwala mu kooti afulumye wamukasukira engoye wabweru. Tetuganya a lot of men mess up naye what is the best way to go around things like that kubanga abaana bayitiridde wononefu buyitiridde. It's too much. That was my question. Inshallah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think we'll get, now that we have Pastor Noel remaining on, I'm sure he has had the Luganda. If he has it, I will try to translate briefly. But I can see already answers coming in the chat room. People saying from Bahati, we are lost here. Please try to remain in English. Oh, Bahati was complaining about the language. Okay, well, she was saying about a video that is doing the rounds on social media. It has had already 1 million views about a man, an African man, complaining about African women, how they rush very quickly to go to either the courts or the authorities, thereby tarnishing in case they have any problem at home. The first thing is to rush to the authorities. The moment you take your husband to the authorities, their image is tarnished. They go into the record, and then that starts now a spiral, a cycle of follow-up that might actually come to affect their livelihoods, and then that consequently comes to affect the children as they break up. The man apparently uses the example of Asian women, for example, who you will hardly see in the courts, or Jewish families, and it's not like they don't have problems. How comes you don't see them, throwing one another into the courts and going through all the social services and so on? So that was the point, in case for Habib and for others who are lost. That was the point that has been raised. She's asking, what can we do as African community, especially to see how we can probably better ourselves, considering what has happened. More hands coming up. There's a hand that came up and then disappeared. Hafsa Bideke, you've been here from the very beginning. Oh my God, I was thinking I'm exhausted, but now I can't leave you with the burning urges. Probably you have an answer to the question. Hafsa, go ahead, please. Keep it short and sweet.
Yes, thank you so much for the great presentation and the great topic here. Mine is just a plea to the community. Please, if a couple is going through a divorce, keep your comments to yourself. These people are going through a lot. The last thing they need is comments from the community and please let these people be. Let they know why they are going through a divorce. Please stop those lousy comments. These people are already struggling. They're psychologically being affected. That is just my point. Please.
Fantastic.
To the community. Thank you very much.
Very, very much. Barakallah. Okay, I'll now go to Pastor, and that should now help us now wrap up. Pastor Noel, please, if you can come in now so that we can wrap up the conversation that we've been having tonight. And then we'll go to council now to bring in the legal aspects, which I think has been holding us. Pastor, are you there?
I am. Can I just quickly address the issue that has just been mentioned about sort of going to the police a bit too quickly, to the authorities a bit too quickly? Now, especially from the immigrant communities, it is important to understand that as communities that are migrated to the West, and being in America, to the United States or to the United Kingdom, we have lost a lot of the social network that we had back home. We had lost sort of family, uncles, grandparents, parents, and all of that network, which means that the support to any couple is very limited, and therefore the breakdown happens quite quickly, and there's very few people to sort of bring families together. The first advice I would say, try to build that support with sort of people who can play certain roles that may not be exactly that of the father, but supportive role in that sense, or else we're going to find ourselves in a worse situation than we should be. So that's really important for any couple to try and create a network of support before any issues arises. Now, in conclusion from me, I'll come back to this aspect of preparation. Before you say, I do. If all of the time we have spent here talking about divorce, talking about the challenges in a marriage, was spent in the preparation before anyone gets into sort of the relationship itself, I think would have saved a good percentage of marriages. Secondly, once you're in a relationship and there are issues, please ask for help. Have a network, have people that are trusted by the couple to go to. Have the go-to people that are agreed before issues arise. Have people that you trust, that you can go to for help. It may be your church, it may be your mosque, whatever it is, have a go-to sort of person or network that you can go for help. Do not stay in silence, because that's the source of all the mental or pressures or any other issues that may arise. Third thing I would say in my conclusion is, if worse came to worse, the person should not be rejected just because they have done or went through a divorce. If worse came to worse, divorce is not the end of it. It can happen, it does happen, but that's not the end of it. And for me, places of worship should be also places of restoration. So if a person has gone through these challenges, places of worship should also be places of restoration. The person who has gone through that can be restored, can be made whole again to restart their life. It's not the end of it. We're trying to make sure that it doesn't happen. We would do anything to avoid it happening, but it's not the end of it. Life can go on, people can be restored, things can be restored. It's not ideal, but it's not the end of it. Thank you very much for inviting. Thank you.
Council Francis, now I'll bring you in to wrap up. We've got 3 minutes to close the program. Oh my God, we were supposed to finish at 10 o'clock, but just see another hour and we could still go on and on. Fantastic words, Pastor Noel Iradukunda. Thank you very much, all the way from Coventry. Francis, you have the last word now. We have 3 minutes. I don't know. It doesn't feel right, actually, to be wrapping up in 3 minutes, but you are a lawyer, and I'm sure you can find a way to that. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Most of what I wanted to say, it has been said, but in conclusion, I would say that I would encourage programs like this to happen more, but also specifically in areas where people go most, like in churches, in mosques and all that, such that this dialogue actually not only come in on a program like this, whereby people have got to buy data, have got to, stay very late in the night. It's got to be easily accessible. And this partnership working, like a program where you're bringing, sheikhs, day-to-day people like me, and, whereby people can have a dialogue. I would also encourage that for each, whether it's a mosque or whether it's a church, can they at least have a lawyer to be present, to be encouraged? They've got all these people, they have these professions. Tap into them. Some people can volunteer these services, in my view, such that dialogue can be brought in, because people probably only know the spiritual part of it, the consequences. They don't know the other aspects, the physical aspects of what is going to happen actually when they go through the divorce. And, because just they don't know. Also, something which I want to conclude on is that for people to know that the process is lengthy, and once it starts, the two people who started it, you think you're in control, you've got no control over it. It's like opening a monster which you can't put back. A can of worms. So the decisions are no longer, you're not the one who is going to make decisions about your house or your children, where they're going to stay or where they're going to have Eid or their Christmas. So somebody else is going to make this decision for you. And I think this is what people need to know, that the law kicks in and you, husband and wife, have got no control of how this whole thing is going to happen. Most of the time, even they blame us lawyers, oh, you did not stick in high enough for me. And you're like, well, the judge has got the final decision. Even when we put your case forward, just remember that, you take it out of control. It's not when you issue and the case is within court. And also just to understand, as we've already seen, I will say this because it's true. Probably the person who is going to be paid out of this exercise is me. Shamefully, the lawyer is going to be paid, the judge is going to be paid, and everybody is going to be spending. You know, so kind of like think about the costs, think about the consequences, think about the mental health, the society. The lady who talked before, you could feel, yes, something has happened, but she's still emotionally affected. So it's kind of like something which is going to go on and on. So the preparation work, which Pastor talked about, and the Sheikh said before, is very, very vital. But please bring in lawyers, bring in everybody, radio presenters, people who have had this experience, you know, who have gone through it, like the ladies who have been here have shared their testimonies, so that people can actually speak to people before they get married to understand what is going on. Thank you so much for hosting me, and it has been absolutely a joy to engage with everybody on this program.
I can't thank you enough. Everybody who has been here. Let me only say next week it's actually going to be a banger, because we will be wrapping up, looking at the way forward, you know, post-divorce. We'll look at the sharing of those proceeds as to what happens, then the way forward. Emotionally, how do you start moving on? It's not a punishment. You should feel free and able to be able to move on, find a new partner, start a new life. Of course, not forgetting what the council has said about the other implications that are in place. But you should not be able to be in prison just to feel because you have divorced, life can't move on. While we would want to discourage divorce in a situation where it happens and it can't be avoided, then we just say that's God's will. We ask God then to give us a way forward. Someone should not emotionally be bound in prison, in bondage. They should find a way to move on. Please don't miss next week, 8 p.m. Same time, we shall have the council now wrapping up, just looking at the best of what can happen in a situation like this, but also with the religious leaders, again, sort of looking at, emotionally, how does the mosque, how does the church come into the picture? I'm sure after attending tonight's conversation, you can't be the same. You can realize that now, the way we are trying even to get the different religions coming in to have a conversation, bringing the legal brains, this definitely, I think, sets up this program in a different perspective, and it's how we have treated all the different subjects. Just to let you know that tomorrow on Wednesday on Bridging the Gap with Becca Chiinji, he will be discussing Heal Your Body, and that is water, light, and energy, and building your immune system. That is with Becca Chiinji tomorrow on Bridging the Gap at 7 p.m. I'm back on Tuesday next week, inshallah, where the program will be broadcast live from Kampala, where I will hope to be next week, inshallah. Please do not miss. Come back. Let us wrap. Let us address this devil that is divorce, and make sure that it doesn't take over. But we should keep in touch. I can only thank you very, very much, Council, for your brilliant presentation. Sheikh Ashraf Mutagubia, Pastor Noel Iradukunda, and the whole team. You, the people who have been following the conversation and keeping the chat room very busy, I can only say thank you very much for making the time. Let's do it next week again, inshallah. Of course, you can go if you missed this program, if you want to share it. The link will be if you just go to YouTube, just look for Ummah Connect. Ummah is UMMA Connected, as we saw, Ummah Connected. And once you get there, just look for Come, Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira. The program will be there. You can download it, share it with your friends, and have a conversation around it. Till next week, thank you very much. In the studio, Isma there, Usama in Uganda, where it's very, very late and you've kept the machines working, and Hasfa in the United States, and to you all who have, been part of this conversation, thank you very much. See you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You have the button, Sheikh Keke.